council meeting of University City, Texas, at our regular meeting, June 6, 2023, at 6:32 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order now and call for a quorum check, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
I'm here, not there.
Councilmember Beth.
Here.
Councilmember Bulman.
Here.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Quorum is present. We shall receive the invocation this evening. Will be given by Councilmember Najarian, and I'll lead us in the pledges afterwards, so would everyone please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. We ask we as a council meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, and to make decisions that promote the common good. Lord God, guide us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer to and nurture the bonds of our community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the lives of the people in our city. May we recognize our responsibility to the past, present, and future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and our efforts here today. We also ask, Lord, that you watch over, protect, and bless all of our first responders, active military, and veterans of this great country. We ask all these things in your glorious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Good. Thank you, everyone, for attending this evening. It's a beautiful summer evening here in University City, and this is our first meeting in June. So I want to welcome all of you to participation this evening. Thank you very much. I want to officially welcome our two councilpersons for their first full meeting, Ashley and Christina. Their first full direct meeting with us. They were actually installed at our last council meeting, but after some of the other individual activities that taken place. So welcome. Looking forward to you guys. Okay. The first item on the agenda this evening is something that I'm very happy to be able to announce this evening. I think you're all aware of the importance of extra activities that young people participate in. And one individual I want to recognize this evening has achieved the highest honor that you can in the world of scouting. And as a Boy Scout, I think many of you with children, Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or Brownies or Weeblos, whatever, you all know the importance of scouting and what it does to help develop young people into future leaders of their country. So, and with him this evening are his parents and his Scoutmaster, and without those two groups of people, probably couldn't have happened without their support. So I would like to ask if Cade Robbins, step forward, Cade. I want to read something, and then we want to recognize you.
Just in the center?
Right there, I'll be right with you. I just can't walk right as fast as you do. Okay, as you can see, Cade has a variety of merit badges, and those of you who are not totally familiar with scouting knows it takes a bunch of those to qualify potentially to be an Eagle Scout. And it is the highest honor that scouting can ever get. And it just gives me great pleasure to give this letter to him that I'm going to read to you, because if we can honor somebody that has made a specific achievement like Cade has done, it's worth recognition at a council meeting. So, Mr. Cade Robbins, Troop 172, and his Scoutmaster is right here, his parents are right there. I want to congratulate you on achieving the highest rank in scouting, Eagle Scout. It takes years of hard work, determination, and dedication to reach that level, and you should be most proud of your accomplishments. I personally know that. Becoming an Eagle Scout is tough and demanding, yet a very rewarding achievement. I know that you will always be prepared with the scouting's level, right? For whatever awaits you in the future. I too was an Eagle Scout as I'm writing in this letter to him, so I truly do know what it takes to reach that level. The lessons I learned and the experiences I had in scouting have helped me throughout my entire life. Again, congratulations, Cade. Great honor.
So I basically wanted to describe my Eagle Scout project that I had constructed with the help of my scout troop, with the help of some people from around my church, Christ the King Lutheran Church. It's just down like that way a little bit. On Pat Booker. I had constructed a veterans prayer garden. We renovated the area a lot, fixed the flagpoles, fixed the lights, just made it generally look nicer. We placed down some plaques, we placed down some flowers and 2 benches. It doubles as a community garden and a place of prayer and memorial. So if any of you would like to visit, it is free 24 hours a day. And that's about it.
Relatively new in scouting today, but in my day in scouts, you didn't have this special project that you had to do. So the demand on the scouts now is even much more than it used to be in previous years. So your accomplishment's terrific, and congratulations. You know, and I ask any of you if you have someone that has made some specific accomplishments in our community here, and you would like to be recognized, please approach me, please approach our city manager or any of our council people, and we'd be glad to recognize them. That's our opportunity at the beginning of our meetings to say thank you and to congratulate those well-deserving young men and women or businesses that have exceeded and excelled in our community. So I encourage you to bring us more candidates, and we'd be glad to honor them. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on now. Actually, I would like to take just a very short minute here before we continue our meeting. I think all of you know what today is. D-Day, 6th of June, almost 80 years ago, 79 years ago to be exact. It was probably one of the most major activities ever happened in a war. We lost thousands and thousands and thousands of troops, not just American, but Allied troops. But it led to the beginning of the end, thank goodness. And interestingly enough, yesterday I went to the assumption of command of 19th Air Force at Randolph Air Force Base. And I did not know this until the new colonel, the new 2-star that took over, mentioned to me that the 19th Air Force goes back to the 19th Pursuit Squadron, which was in Normandy, which was in England, and flew the cover for all those naval ships that came into Normandy on that particular day. So what a coincidence, fantastic. So let's just pause for a moment of silence to recognize those honored, wonderful heroes of America. Thank you. If you've never seen Saving Private Ryan, and you want to see what war is like in the first 15 minutes of that movie, you would find out. If you have never seen Private Ryan, you really need to go see it. It's phenomenal. And Steven Spielberg, the director, spent many hours and almost years in talking to survivors of Normandy to find out exactly how they felt. So those first 15 minutes of that movie that you will see, if you watch it, are totally exactly what happened during that conflict. So thank you for bearing with me. I think it deserves that recognition. All right, let's move on now to we have a slightly revised agenda this evening. Moving on to our consent agenda. The minutes of the previous council meeting were listed. We won't be able to cover them tonight because it didn't give specific dates, so we'll cover those at our next meeting. We'll move right on now to our consent agenda, which is tab number A. All the matters that are there are listed, as you can see, considered to be routine by council and enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, if discussion is desired, that item can be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So the items we have before us, does anyone want to pull one of these items at the moment? Mr. Vaughan?
Just B and C for a separate vote, please.
B and C for a separate vote, okay? Anyone else? All right, so let's now go for items number A and D then on this consent agenda. Then we'll cover B and D separately.
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Second.
Okay, move in a second. We're good. All right, any discussion then? Mr. Buck and Mr. Najarian, let's, okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
All right, those B and C have passed. Now let's move on to A, which is to consider ordinance 361 AE 2023, ordinance amending ordinance 361.
Sorry, was that backwards? So did we vote on A and B or B and C?
Which one did you want to vote?
B and C.
Oh, B and C, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot. A and D, all right, D, that's going to be. Consider ordinance 632 PC 564 2023. It's an ordinance amending the future land use plan to change land use designation of property located at the southeast corner of East Loop 1604 North Access Road and West Bird Boulevard, CB 5053 P 103, 12.756 acres. And it goes from HC Highway Commercial and GC General Commercial to HC Highway Commercial and HDR High Density Residential, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. This is our second reading. Okay, so we'll open this up for discussion then.
Just vote.
Pardon?
Just vote.
You just want to vote on it separate? Okay, all right. Let's call for the vote then, please. Oh, wait a minute, we have the motion in a second. We have to have a motion in a second.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Buck?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Christina. Okay, any discussion now? All right, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
No.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
No.
Okay, the motion passes in 4-2. Let's move on now to item number C. Consider ordinance 581-Y-PUD 2023-103. It's an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Universal City, Texas for approximately 29.5 acre property located at the southeast corner of East Loop 1604 North Access Road and West Bird Boulevard, rezoning and said property from C5 Highway Commercial and C4 General Commercial, to PUD 2023-103 district, generally for commercial services and retail, multifamily residential convenience storage and warehousing, adopting the PUD final plan related to PUD 2023-103, providing for severability, providing for the publication of the caption of this ordinance, and establishing an effective date. This is our second reading, so that will also require a motion and a second.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Najarian, have a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Buck, second. Any discussion? All right, call for that vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
No.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
No.
All right, that motion passes also 4-2. Let's move on now to our next item, which is citizens to be heard. This time is provided, as you can see, for citizens. We look at a routine by council, although we are really welcome your comments. There's no separate discussion on these items. If the citizens desire, well, wait a minute, that's on the consent agenda. Hold that off, so you can read it if you haven't seen the agenda, okay? There's no council discussion, but we welcome everybody's remarks, and there are 3 individuals that have signed up this evening, so I'll call them up, and you're welcome to address us on issues or concerns that you deem important for council to consider. First one is Mr. B.J. Rudolph. Mr. Rudolph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. One of the items I'd like to discuss is essentially the just done vote for and the changes associated with it. We're often reminded that we're a landlocked community and that essentially we need to obviously improve our tax base or commercial tax base. In essence, with this particular project and many of the others that have been recently proposed, there's a gradual evolution that occurs between the first presentation, in which there's a significant portion of the proposal that's associated with commercial development that gradually gets converted to be a higher density living environment for the citizens of Universal City. I just remind the council that we're almost to the tipping point where essentially there'll be more rental properties in the Universal City, almost to that tipping point, than there are individually owned properties, which will change essentially the text of the city. So I'd just like to ask council and EDC to have concerns with regard to the direction that we're headed for increased density in the city and actually less commercial use of the available city lands. Item number 2 actually has to deal with Exhibit A for tonight, that ultimately establishes a minimal fund for city projects, including venue tax use. I remind the city council members that the presentation on 2 May of the second quarter financial report to the city by the city manager reported that, and I quote page 1, paragraph 7, the golf course fund revenues exceeded expenditures by an amount of $631,000. Fantastic news. A very true statement. The statement goes on to read, venue tax year to date is $1 million. Wow, it's $1 million or 68% of that budget. Okay, that may be a little too loud even for me. When you look at the numbers provided by the city, then you find that for the second quarter of that report, there's not a $631,000 profit water excess. Excess in expenditures, but when you look at the actual earned income from that venue source, there's actually a $455,000 deficit. Okay, so I just caution council, particularly when you're moving forward, to assess the new budgets, to look carefully at the wording in the documents. Golf course fund revenues versus what is the actual earned income from that venue operation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. Appreciate it. Next individual this evening, Mr. Edwards.
My name is Richard Edwards. I live on Trudy Lane, and I usually try to keep it within the 3 minutes, but I'm asking tonight for your indulgence, and I may have one extra. We're now in the month of June. Many groups and even some major corporations have proclaimed this Pride Month. But just what exactly is the true objective of this Pride movement? Is it merely to recognize and defend initiates of certain lifestyles? Or could it be something far darker and nefarious? For example, why so much interest by this? Why so much interest in the children? What's that all about? Well, I think perhaps PRIDE in this case is an acronym. PRIDE. Promote rampant, idiotic debauchery everywhere. Now, we all know what it means to promote, just as we're clear on the word everywhere. But what about rampant? Rampant means growing, spreading, or increasing in an uncontrolled way. Idiotic means showing a complete lack of thought or common sense. And debauchery is the extreme indulgence in bodily pleasures, often considered immoral. To further shed light, I will quote Benjamin Franklin. Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. In thinking with you, there is no better cause for public welfare than to form and train up our youth in virtue and morality. Wise and good men, in my opinion, are the strength of the state. I also think that the general virtue is more probably to be obtained through the education of our youth than through the exhortation of adults. Bad habits and vices of the mind, like diseases of the body, are more easily prevented in our youth than cured in adults. End of quote. Now, there are many that think that our country is going to hell in a handbasket. And I think I know why. Our focus, our attention, has shifted over the decades from virtue and morality to prominence and personal indiscretions. And this is causing a dark cloud over us that will lead us to ruin. How do we fight the darkness? Well, how do you get down off an elephant? You don't. You get down off a duck. So how do we fight the darkness? We don't. We just turn on the light. That light is in each and every one of us. All we need to do is choose to turn it on. For this reason, with all sincerity, I humbly ask this council and the mayor to proclaim in Universal City the month of June as Virtue and Morality Month. Let's dedicate the month of June to virtue and morality. Now, if rules and regulations prevent the doing of this tonight, then I ask that it be placed on the agenda for the 20th. What good person could find any displeasure in such a proclamation? Surely none. Only the wicked. Let us, through our words and deeds, endeavor to be a shining city on the hill. Our nation needs it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I step away for just a moment?
Yes.
Please stand for something. Go right back. T-shirt or something?
We'll just, Mr. Buck had to leave for a minute. So the next individual that signed up to address council is Mr. Ken Taylor. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Ken Taylor from Universal City. Unlike some cities, Universal City has never suffered from weak, divided leadership in its city council. Universal City has always enjoyed and benefited from strong, united council leadership. Apart from healthy debate, strong leadership requires teamwork. And teamwork requires effort. Yet it's an effort that your constituents expect you to make. You are the city's leadership team. Your legal authority as a council member derives solely from the collective legislative action of the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Taylor? All right. Those are the only individuals that signed up this evening. Did anyone else want to address council that didn't get a chance to sign up on the sheet here? Okay, thank you very much. Very much. Let's move on then to our next item on the agenda, which is the first item of business, which is a concept plan presentation of Calvary Chapel multi-use PUD at Universal Square Shopping Center.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we often bring planned unit developments before you. This is an opportunity for the First Calvary Church to come before you to get some feedback from council on a proposal that they have within Universal City. Michael will make some introductions, and then the church members will give a presentation.
Thank you, Kim. Mayor, Council. So I'll just give a quick introduction. As Kim mentioned, they do have a presentation that they need to make. We'll go into more of the details. As you know, Calvary Chapel is located at the Triangle Shopping Center, which is a prominent shopping center in town. Their congregation is growing. They have a need to expand. And so they came to us with a interesting proposal to relocate their services, wholesale, all of their services that they currently provide and the ones that they wish to provide to the recently vacated Alorica space over in a less used or less prominent shopping center across the street. And so with that said, we'll be here to answer any questions. I'd like to hand it over to the applicant so they can make their presentation.
Okay.
Thank you for having us here and hearing us out. I'm Matt. I'm one of the pastors with Calvary Chapel in San Antonio. And as was just explained, we would like to just share our concept, just to get feedback from you before we decide to finalize any kind of a lease agreement, as well as submitting an actual PUD application. So that's why we're here, share that with you and to get some feedback from you. So again, we're going to discuss the PUD request itself. I'll give a little bit of background just as was shared without getting too much into repeating ourselves. The subject property at hand. And then conceptual site plan, as well as a timeline and any anticipated questions. And then to open it up, or feel free as you want to ask questions. Hit me while I'm up
I'll
here.
let them ask questions anytime if something.
Absolutely, that will not mess me up. So.
Good.
All right, so the actual request itself, Calvary Chapel San Antonio plans to submit a PUD application at some point, requesting feedback from you now. Our plan is to redevelop the interior of 2103 Universal City Boulevard. It is right across the street here, the Alorica West space that's currently vacant. And our uses would be for the church itself, a sanctuary that would seat as many as we would be able to put in there, but probably somewhere around 800 to 1,000 seats. A chapel, children's church classrooms, a multi-purpose room, gym, a commercial kitchen, cafe, K through 12 academy, Bible college, medical clinic, radio program, and administrative offices. Just so you're aware, we already have the vast majority of those ministries going on today and have been going on for years under kind of split spaces as it is. We would just like to continue that for the most part. And understanding that this is a PUD, we have to be specific and try to anticipate some of those uses moving forward without having to revisit this. That's why we've listed things like our Bible college that we do intend to start, as well as the commercial kitchen. And just so you're aware, it is the conviction of our hearts at our church that anything and everything we offer to the community is for free. We never ask for $1, and it's all paid for by offerings to the church. As an example, our medical clinic that we currently have up at the it's a Triangle Shopping Center. It's basically a primary care doctor's office. There's no way to exchange money there. If anybody insists on giving money in any way, we just point them over to the church just around the corner, and they're more than welcome to put money in an offering box. And we never give them a dollar amount, and we never compel them to go that direction. We don't even take insurance. All right, moving forward, we're currently located at the Triangle Shopping Center. It's prime retail, as we understand, major thoroughfare, 2 of them actually, Pat Booker 1604. We've been there for 26 years. We actually just celebrated our 28th birthday here in Universal City with our church. The church continues to grow. We are at max capacity for most of our services every week. And we offer services on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and 3 of them on Sundays. It can be overwhelming at times. God's been bringing us people, and all we're asking for is a little bit of extra room to be able to bring those people in. Our youth ministry is forced to meet at separate locations on Friday nights and on Sunday mornings so that we would actually have the space. And then, we just don't have enough space. We desire to continue to be a part of Universal City as we have been for 28 years, leasing more space in the current location. Next door, as y'all are probably aware, if you know that space, Tuesday morning was there. That's been vacant for a long time. We'd love to move in there, but it's not possible. Prominent Shopping Center retail is not something that you would like to give up. I know that a gentleman had mentioned keep an eye on revenue. Well, that's one of those spaces where I guess you would like to keep an eye on that revenue. Suitable vacant facilities within the permitted zoning districts do not exist. With the current zoning, we simply can't actually have all of our ministries under one roof right now, specifically because of our K through 12 academy. And then buying and developing land is not an option for us. We don't sit on cash. When the money comes in for offerings, we freely give it out to our ministries. So we're seeking the city's consideration. We are seeking the city's consideration to allow us to relocate all of our ministries into the less prominent Alorica space directly across the way here. It is directly adjacent to residential and neighborhood services districts. It meets the church's need to consolidate into more suitable, larger space within Universal City. It frees up prime retail space in the more visible, highly sought after Triangle Shopping Center. It immediately utilizes a large facility, over 51,000 square feet, that will possibly sit vacant for years if it insists on staying retail for such a big box like that. It more appropriately brings our services closer to actual residents and neighborhoods, and it fulfills our desire to continue to bring great value to the city. The Alorica space is vacant, and it's available for a new tenant as early as October. Their current lease ends at the end of September. The property owner supports our use and supports us moving forward with the PUD rezoning application. Just so you're aware, we have not signed a lease agreement. We are still working things out with them, but they have given us permission to move forward with these conversations. That space is currently zoned C2 retail. And as I mentioned earlier, the PUD approach, the multi-use PUD, is our only apparent option to be able to bring all of our ministries, including the academy, under one roof. Just so you can get a visual, probably pretty easy for y'all to know what I'm talking about. It's across the street. But it's that shopping center there, and if I was to do an aerial view, we're looking at specifically that space there, which is the I think it's a little over 50% of the total square footage in that entire retail. And then this is, don't hold us to this. This is conceptual. This is drawing on a napkin at this point, making sure we actually think we can fit all of the ministries appropriately in that 51,000 square feet. And as you can see, we succeeded in doing that. So we picture kind of the church along the bigger box side. Right next to it would be the academy, and then next to that would be the Malta medical clinic that we have. This is just kind of a blow up over the left side, the clinic, the academy, and then the church with the children's church, the kitchen and cafe, and then chapel, and then the multi-use high school and junior high rooms. As far as really what we're looking to do is really just change the interior. We're not looking to change the footprint of the site that's already there. The only real outside change we're looking at is signage. And these are, again, are conceptual. So we're looking at Calvary Chapel sign, the Academy sign there in the middle, and then on the far left of that screen is Malta Medical. Other than that, there really is no other exterior change to the site that we're looking at. This is, we don't have to throw too many darts at this, but this is a conceptual timeline as well. If we could get the lease agreement squared away, if we find that you would be amenable to us moving forward with this, and with the feedback that we get today, then moving forward with getting a lease approved by the end of this month, we could have our first church service as early as Easter next year. And then these are some anticipated questions that I'm going to go ahead and try to answer for you that we would anticipate. Is there sufficient parking? The answer is yes. There is significantly more parking than we have now. And then even considering upwards of 1,000 seats in the sanctuary, you would need at least 600 spaces. Well, we have 600 spaces just around the front, the side, and the back of the church part of that space is 600 spaces, and in total in that entire place is over 1,100 parking spaces. Would we require a school zone? If it's not required by zone or code, we're not requesting it, just so you're aware of that. Alcohol and gun sales. So if there's a church or if there's a school, we haven't dug into the code, but in case that comes up where now that there's a church or a school in that space, is there minimum requirement for where gun sales or alcohol sales would be allowed? If it's possible, if that exists and if it's possible and if it's needed, we will sign a waiver. That's not something that we would levy on anybody. And then yes, we would need to park our school bus. And I know that's a big yellow eyesore for some people, but that's our bus, and we need to be able to park it in our parking lot somewhere. Thank you. Do you have any questions, feedback? None? Okay, great.
Let me open it up now. Again, the whole objective here is for us to give you some feedback.
Absolutely, I want it.
If you choose to proceed, then you
Yes.
at least know how it feels. So I think Ms. Bulman's the first one to put her hand up.
I just wanted to let you guys know, I talked to all the businesses that you guys are currently next to, and then the anticipated businesses you'd be next to, and I think the only thing was, at Triangle Park right now is just that you guys, is the parking issue. But I walked Alorica and I see now you guys will have way more parking spots, so that shouldn't be an issue. And then I also wanted to let you guys know that I did ask like how the kids were, and I think it's really awesome that every single business said your kids are beyond respectful. They've never had an issue. Your people that you'd be new tenants with were very excited. Their only concern was how the kids will behave, and since I already said they got glowing reviews, I think it'd be great. I did have a couple questions though. Are you guys, you said leasing, so you're renting, correct?
Correct.
Not buying the space.
The starting point for the property owner is that he doesn't support like the lease to own.
Okay.
But I have an understanding of why that's an issue. We may be able to come to a lease to own agreement, but for right now, the plan is at least a lease.
Okay, perfect. And then I have one, how are you guys gonna handle pickup and drop off? Are people gonna be expected to line down Universal City Boulevard, or are you guys just gonna have, I know you don't have a ton of kids right now, but do you guys kind of have a plan, how you kind of think this space will work for pickup and drop off?
We haven't gone down that path just yet
Okay.
to figure out what that plan would be, but we would certainly put something together that would keep the traffic off of the thoroughfares and bring it into the parking lot, so it's our problem and not yours.
Yeah.
And currently the way that works is we actually utilize the parking lot, and we have a system in place for that very small parking space area. So we would welcome more space to be able to do something for that. So our plan would be to keep it off of the main thoroughfares.
And then just my, do you bus kids to and from school with that bus, or is it just for field trips?
That bus is for field trips, and as I know that we've joked about, that she has seen us at various parks around town. For recess and for PE, we actually bus the kids separately twice a day out to local parks to do recess and PE. So that thing runs twice a day, Monday through Friday.
Okay. And then the only thing I had was just the residents' thought, and if it's being rented, then all the residents support it that I talked to. So that's it.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? You stated that if it's leased, if it's rented, is it change if we were to get to a purchase side of things?
Right now it's hard to say, but if you guys were buying this time, the residents would have rather it stayed commercial to keep that open for commercial. But if you guys are leasing, they supported it just because we'd be getting the tax income from it. We'd be getting the revenue from it. But yeah, so yes, kind of.
Okay. Who was next? Paul or Mr. Burke?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pastor, thank you very much for presenting this plan. I know you said it was drawn on napkins, but well thought out. I mean, you use every inch of this facility in a this is a pretty well thought out way. I know
you should see what we do now.
I have seen.
Okay.
I've been a resident here. I've lived in the Athenian area. When you being at the Triangle Center there, what you brought to this community as far as things to do for kids and the youth has been fantastic. The doors have always been open, like Councilman Bulman had said. There's never been any problem with kids around there. When I did live there, I did notice the kids like at PE jogging around the area there, and that kind of concerned me. This area would be different. I would like to see some kind of facility towards the back where, if you're doing that, that would kind of wall it off from the rest of the traffic going around. But it's still much better than what you're dealing with over there.
Can I mention something on that?
Please.
Sure, if you don't mind. That's mostly just our cross-country team that does that. They do have partners. There is a plan for that. Parents are aware of it. for how we handle that. But I will also offer that all of the local schools use the local thoroughfares as well for their cross-country. So it's not that we're doing something overly unique with that, but I would agree, right there on Pat Booker in 1604, not fantastic.
Yeah.
But for us to use perhaps right here, this road, like this way, that's actually not far off from like what they do at Clemens, in front of, you know, Borgfeld and running up and down Shorts Parkway. So it's not out of the normal.
Down the road, as far as like the drop-offs and everything else, I wasn't really concerned with this new area. It's probably a lot more room to do that than where you are now for that type of activity. Normally, I would be kind of going, taking over that spot, you know, ties it down to, you know, non-commercial, would worry me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm looking, it's tit for tat because you open up the triangle area. And just, I mean, I love this plan from where you are, where it's located in the community. And again, looking at your Calvary chapter, chapel as a whole and what you've done for this community, one of the main things that I have loved and it's been around is your multi-clinic that's been open to everybody in this community. And I've got it, one of my stories is I was in between insurance at one time and I needed to be checked up on. I had some pains and everything else, and I went down there and found out that I was very much type 2 diabetic. And you have Dr. Paley there. I actually, at the time, I was thinking it was other things, and I think he's actually responsible for possibly saving my life. And it was, just like you said, free to the community. I have a regular doctor now. I have insurance, everything's good, I'm keeping, but it was due to your clinic that I was able to go in at a moment's notice, and you know, besides me, the amount of people that have gone to that clinic from this community has been tremendous positive for this community. And I personally would say for this whole thing, how you're expanding it, I say move forward. Thank you, Mr.
I want to go to the picture you're looking at, and I'll have that. If I can kind of play off of what you said about the clinic, when we first opened the clinic 10 years ago, we really thought it would vastly support our church. We wanted it to be for everybody, but we anticipated it would mostly be church Christians that went. The reality is that 90% of the people that run through that church, that clinic, are not church members.
Mr. Buck, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pastor Matt, thank you very much for coming down tonight to get some input from us. I do have a couple of questions. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one. What I want to get clarification, are you a charter school or a private school?
We're a private school.
So tuition based?
It is free 100% to every student that comes through.
Free, okay, good.
Like
Thank you.
Just so everyone knows, the answer to that is going to be free to everything you ask about our ministries.
Free?
Free 100%.
Very nice. How many students do you currently have enrolled?
So currently, if we just take an average to 10 students per grade, so about 130 students if you kind of average.
And how many do you anticipate having in the new location, assuming it goes forward?
It really, at least the same, 130. Maybe if we take the classrooms up to 12 students. We don't want large classrooms. So really it would come down to once we get past where we are and we bring some architects in that take this off of a napkin and show us what space we really have for classrooms, that's when we'll know. But we're certainly not going to have large classrooms.
My idea was, are the classrooms getting bigger, or and you did say in there that you're seeking to expand the other areas of the ministry, the chapel, the sanctuary area. So I wanted to clarify whether or not this would involve a second school bus potentially if you were increasing the number of students, but it sounds like you're not.
Probably not. We haven't even. We're happy to have the one bus we have now.
Because that means another driver and more monitors.
You haven't mentioned the dollar signs with all of that. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to go where the Lord leads us with people coming in. And if we can add a couple students here and there to each grade level, we would like to do that if the space is there and if it makes sense for what we have over there. The reality is that we have if you could imagine, a free academy where one of our graduates just this last class has a full ride scholarship to SMU. So it's a real school with real kids with real education. We would love to clear out our standby list for those classes, and we'd love to be able to do that day one. We understand it's probably not going to happen, but we would like to expand enough to be able to clear out that standby list. And it could be 12 or 13 in a class, 14 maybe.
Nice. I'm a product of private schools for my elementary school years, so I have a great appreciation for what you guys are doing as a private school. I do have a question for Mr. Casada, because Pastor Matt brought it up. Is there an issue with the school moving in there and alcohol or gun sales in the area? And if there is, are we able to waive that requirement?
Gun sales, I don't have an answer for that. You have to look into it. With regards to alcohol, you can provide variance. However, with the likely tenants that would go into those other spaces nearby, we don't believe it's going to be an issue based on the state requirements for measurements. For a church, it's 300 feet. The way you measure it, you go from the door to the street, over, back up to the door. It's a big parking lot. They're going to keep that requirement. For a private school, it's undetermined, because the way the state language is written, it was intended for 2 separate lots. This is all under 1 lot. And so we'd have to get a legal rendering on that, but we could get a variance, or you can issue a variance at City Council.
Very well, and I think the closest gun sales would be the pawn shop across the street at the other intersection of Pat Booker and Universal City Boulevard.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Sure.
sorry, Mr. Goolsby is indicating to me that he does have a question.
Now I know how it's
Yell when you want to get on. All right, Councilmember Goolsby, you're on.
Thank you, sir. I had to wait for Councilmember Buck to stop asking all my questions. So, could you please repeat the days that you will have service at the church?
Yes, and I don't think we're going to change that too much. Maybe we'll do 2 services on Sunday instead of 3. I know that a lot of us would really love that. But our services are currently 7 o'clock Monday nights, 7 o'clock Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Friday night, and then we do 3 services on Sunday at 8:30, 10:15, and 11:59, so we can say they're all in the morning.
That's fantastic. How many, when I look at that square footage, it looks like you're going to end up with over 300 people in that sanctuary. How many people are you anticipating in your sanctuary?
We currently seat 300 in the space we have now. And if you picture just the second smallest, or the second largest box that's to the left, so you've got Malta, and then where the school is, that big box that's there before the gym, that actually represents the amount of square footage that we currently have in totality. And we fit Malta, the academy, and 300 seats in that. We anticipate, and this is not to scale the box on the far right that has the church, it actually should be about 50% bigger compared to the left side. We anticipate being able to put about 800 seats to 1,000 in there, depending on the configuration.
Okay, do we know if that building is sprinkled or not? That's just something you're going to have to, are you prepared to work around that?
We understand it's sprinkled. We've been in there. We've seen it when we thought at first that it wasn't. And we saw that there's a sprinkler shutoff valve when we first walked in, and we started to cry. So it is sprinkled, and we understand that modifications to that would be necessary depending on how we change for the use, but it is currently sprinkled. And it is checked with the fire marshal as well.
Fantastic. My only concern with the school bus is that it not be parked right out there at the street. But I mean, we can work through that later. I love the idea of bringing that many people into Universal City in the evenings, 3 or 4 times a week at night. I also like the sheer number of kids coming into Universal City. Could you give us some idea of where is all your congregation coming from?
I personally live in Cibolo. We've got a contingent that live in Cibolo, Shirts. We have a lot that live in Converse. Really, our church brings a lot of people into Universal City. We have some that live in Universal City. They kind of live over, I'll raise your hands. They're pretty much here. But we do have some that live in the, behind the Forum shopping area, that area there. I don't remember what that neighborhood's called, Olympia Hills. So the vast majority of our congregation comes from outside Universal City.
That's fantastic. All right, I'm excited about it. I have no issues with this and being able to, I look forward to seeing more things in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I've had the opportunity to be around some of the folks that attend your church and have also known people that have used the clinic and have been appreciative of that being available. And so I do know that you guys have a tremendous outreach service program, that you really do interact well with the community. I've also had kids show up at the pumpkin patch to volunteer. So I think your interaction with the community is great. I come from a standpoint of I struggle with churches taking over retail space. The fact that you guys already have retail space, and I think you're moving into a better spot for you and probably for us as well, is great. I would love to have some sort of ability to really help that space that you're in turn over into retail versus have it turn over into a different church space. Kind of come from that. I also struggle with the bus parking. I think it would be great. I know you have a side parking lot there and a back parking lot there. That would be great if that could have kind of some sort of permanent parking back there. The alcohol thing, I'd love to see the waiver. Let me see here.
We'll sign it right now.
I should know that the Potter's Church, which is also in that center, has that in the past provided a waiver as well.
Okay, and I think that's great, because I know that
That was like 15 years ago, so I don't know what the law requires or any changes that would be made, but we'll certainly look into that too.
I know there's alcohol sales with Walmart, and then in a perfect world, I would love, as we get some of the growth here, the high density the apartments going in, that eventually some of those spots might be rented out by somebody who wants to have a kind of a cafe or a bistro, and that they would have the opportunity to offer wine if they could. So I would hate to see that be a drawback. The fact that it might not ever happen is very possible. I really like what you guys are currently doing. I love what you're trying to expand into. So I think you guys are going down a very positive path that is showing a great partnership with the community. Those are kind of my big ones, is that I want to make sure that we don't end up with two churches and two big retail spaces.
Sure, yeah, so I don't know if okay, so I understand that there is a window of opportunity. I don't remember how many days it is. Is it 3 months? 120 days. According to, this isn't on purpose, but it could help. Our thought is that the first thing we would move is the church. And assuming this timeline follows through, which we know it always does, that our first church service, we would be out of our current facility and in the new facility having our first service as early as Easter next year. Our current lease doesn't end until July of next year. So simply by us vacating and the space not being available to be rented out, that helps with that issue. I have also put a bug in the ear of the current property owner that there is that window of opportunity, and that if they want to be in good favor with the city, that they might do something as well to kind of help with that. So they are supportive of that as well. But at the end of the day, it could be tough. But I really don't think that it's too much of an issue, even though I'm told that I'd be surprised how many churches want to move into places. So.
And I will say, just from personal experience, I know from going into some of the businesses that are in there, they've had some issues with maybe leaking water that was significant earlier, maybe last fall. So just kind of as a cognizant heads up, just
in here?
In the new one, where you're looking at. Just having walked into a business on a Saturday morning when they were not being able to open because they had water damage.
Okay. In our space there, or
not in your space, but along that whole thing?
Yeah, I'm aware. We have walked through the facility, and the facility person that took us through it did give us a heads up that there was a roof issue somewhere else in that retail spot. There was leaking, and so even he was giving us a heads up, and he worked for Alorica. So usually they tell more than the property. Thank you for the heads up.
Mr. Long?
I think your missions are amazing, and I support you guys moving to that new spot, so. Amen.
Yes, Paul?
Mr. Quesada, Councilmember Fitzpatrick brought up a very good point about the Triangle Center there. I know your lease wouldn't end, but it would be, since obviously that was before our conditional use, when we came up with the conditional use, was that like it would revert back 120 days after their lease is up, or do we have any recourse to be able to keep another church or something from going into that triangle to save it for retail? What's our recourse?
So according to our code, the non-conforming section, if they vacate the current lease space in the triangle and it remains vacated for 120 days, then any new church or similar type of use would have to conform to the current code, and therefore they would not be able to locate there. It's that 120-day window where the same type of use can move in by right, and we can't do anything about it.
Okay.
So that's what we've talked to them about initially, is that we want to ensure somehow that they are thinking about a way to ensure that another church or similar type of use does not move in for that 120 days. And I think we addressed that issue today based on.
Yeah, and I'm just missing one point here, and maybe it's probably just me, but from the time that they vacate or from the time that your lease is up?
No, it's the time they vacate.
Thank you. Okay.
There are different ways in which we can determine that they are vacated.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And I apologize, so the city attorney is indicating to us that we should be looking a little bit further into that to make sure that we're comporting and not impinging on any rights of the property owner.
That's what we had before.
Okay, I think you can estimate that the majority of council is not 100%. Proof effort. We applaud that. We've enjoyed you being a member of our community for such a long time. This allows you a chance to expand. Of course, your next step then is obviously to prepare to go before P&Z. And so I wish you the best, and I think you've seen solid feedback from us as to how we appreciate what you're doing in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, if I may, we'll look into the further the situation with the service of adult beverages and firearms, and then also look into the rights of the current property owner at 2902 Capitol Road.
Very good. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming this evening. All right, hope that gives you some momentum to press on. All right, let's go now to tab number C, which is the concept plan presentation for the plot at Athenian and Centerbrook.
Mayor, maybe we can just get everybody next to go through the premise.
Sure.
Thank you. As you know, with this last one, anytime somebody is considered doing the planning and development, we give them the opportunity to come before City Council to gain some feedback. This one is actually for a project which is at Athenian and Centerbrook. Again, Michael will give an overview of the property and the project, and then we'll let the proposed developers speak to their project.
Thank you, Kim. So you've seen this similar proposal on this site before. We had another developer come before you last year at some point, and they had proposed at Athenian and Centerbrook as a vacant triangular piece of property, row homes. They did not follow through on that, and so we had a subsequent developer who's here tonight to give a presentation. They have reduced the density and changed the use type. They are proposing high-density single-family homes, and it's a 3.3 acre site. They're proposing 27 single-family homes. They've worked really well with staff and addressed the majority, or if not all of the issues that we brought to their attention. And so I'd like to hand it over to them to make the presentation.
This was the one that where they initially proposed 3 stories, didn't they?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, with rooftops.
Okay, all right, yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Charles Turner. I'm the CEO and founder of Terramark Urban Homes. We're based out of San Antonio, Texas, and we primarily develop all around downtown San Antonio and also to the south as far as Brook City base. We have projects in a number of locations in and around downtown. So we kind of specialize in infill developments and mid-density to high-density. We do a lot of 3-story block projects in and around downtown. We have a property that was described under contract, and we've been working with staff diligently, and they're great staff to work with. They've been very helpful and great to work with. And so I'll walk you through our plan for the project. Let's see if I just click the top button here. Maybe which one? This one? I didn't know where to
Make sure we didn't run out of battery. Because that does happen. We may have, you'll have to advance the slides from the back.
I get it.
Thank you.
Here we go.
It's working.
Perfect. As you can see, this is the aerial photograph of the area that we're talking about. I think y'all are familiar with the intersection. As Mike mentioned, it's about 3.3 acres of property. And our next slide. This is a conceptual plan, and we're here obviously to get input from the council about the plan that was proposed. And I'll blow up into but these will be freestanding, single-family patio homes, and they're designed specifically as we get into the blow-ups of the project. But these are designed because of the location there along Athenian Drive. These will have interior courtyards, sort of like you see in Louisiana and those sort of places where you come in through the side of the property, and as you see the elevations, we'll show you a little bit later. But that way you've got interior courtyard, that's where you have your spaces. Got some new batteries?
New batteries, yes.
All right, let's see if this works. As you can see, we've got a drive that comes in off of Athenian Drive that bisects the units that face Athenian. And then behind it is a common drive that'll serve and enter into the back of those units. Each unit has a 2-car garage. And we also provide an additional 2 parking spaces behind that, just so we end up having plenty of visitor parking that wouldn't burden the street out front. We do have, it's a 4-lane street out front where we're proposing where there is already parking available along the street for drop-offs and pizza delivery and things like that. So we'd still be using the street as well. We'll be extending the sidewalk along Athenian. Development of our project, and then we have, as you can see, units facing Centerbrook, and then some interior units that face a common green space, the triangular space that you see there. You can see in the little gray lines that go along I guess I call it the southerly part of our property. That's a high wall. If you go out there, there's a wall there of stone that's about 12 or 13 feet high, which is really great because it goes right along the green space that we have, so it'll be a nice backdrop to what we do there as well. So let me show you a little bit of the concept of the plan. This is basically to scale. The houses are about 12 feet apart. You walk through, rendering's not all that great, as you walk through the court, through between the spaces, these are 0 lot line. So there'll be a house with no windows on one side of it, and then you walk through the space in between the units to get to a courtyard in the middle. But all the elevations will be varied, different roof forms, different fenestrations, different detailing, so as we progress the plans along, they're not gonna be like townhouses, like row houses or anything like that. They'll be all quite unique. We've done several projects like this in San Antonio, and they turned out really, really nice. This is, you can see it pretty good, but these are 3-bedroom homes. And as you can see, as you come in from the right-hand side, you'll see you come in and you end up in a courtyard that sits between the garage, but then the garage is attached to the home through kind of an entertainment space as well as a mudroom that connects the two spaces. So you basically come in on the side into your living room. You got your kitchen, living room, dining room area, stairs that lead up. On the first floor, you've also got a guest bedroom or study where somebody could use that as a home office or something like that. And on the second floor, as you come up, you can't see it behind the photo or the picture of the council member, but there are 2 full-size bedrooms upstairs. Each have their own bathroom, that sort of thing. These are about 1,560 square feet. And so that's what's being proposed, and most likely some of the units that we will finally design on the property will probably have different sizes and slightly different variations of floor plan. Just the project we did in Houston, or in San Antonio, excuse me, we did 20 houses in a project called Westport Villas, and we ended up doing 5 different floor plans, eventually different sizes and different arrangements of the spaces. So there will be some variety as we take the plan forward. And then just to add a little information in terms of economics of this deal, we'll be adding about $11 million of new improvements to the property when this is all done. So it's should be a good hit to your tax base when we're finished. Okay, and here to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. Hang on. Let me start with Mr. Goolsby if he's got a question.
Okay, great.
Fair?
Oh, you can't hear him.
Muffled. Are you muted? Barry, you might be muted.
No.
Okay, hang on. We'll get to you as soon as we can get you back connected. Let's go to Ms. Bulman.
So I got a couple of questions and concerns from the residents. They were all pretty much the same. One of them was, do you guys plan on having an HOA for this neighborhood?
We will.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the other concern is about the guest parking and the parking on Athenian. I don't think you ever, I don't know if you could answer it, but is that gonna be an issue? Is there gonna be a ton of people that are gonna be parking on Athenian? Is there a possibility to do a guest parking lot somewhere or some sort of, just to alleviate if people don't park in their garage and they park in their driveway, then they have guests over, then they would be parking on Athenian, and that was a concern of a lot of homeowners.
Yeah, we spoke to that issue actually very early on, and the staff brought up that very same question. That's why we literally doubled the amount of parking by putting 2 parking spaces behind the 2-car garage, and then also within the, let me flip back to the site plan. We also have interior parking that we've done along the common drive inside.
Oh,
All the
okay.
parallel parking inside, so we have.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay,
Yes.
so they can park in that alley.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Like, people can park there
Right.
instead of in the front.
Right.
Okay, I didn't realize that, and neither did anyone else.
And that's a
Okay.
24-foot alley based on your requirements. And then we did the flare out, which is another 9 feet that the parallel parking is put on. So it's almost like another public street back there. It's almost like 28 feet wide.
Oh, well, okay, but that's only, oh, that's what I thought. Okay, so I was kind of right. So it's only those guest parking, so it's 4 spots? Or you're saying they can park all the way along it? Because this shows 4 spots, but are you saying they can park along that entire
Yeah, there's actually
road?
8 and another 3, so there's 11 parking spaces there.
Well, okay,
And then everybody has 2 additional guest parking spaces behind their garage, which has 2 spaces.
Yeah, the issue is when you have people like Ashton who's never parked in a garage, and then they always park out, so then you're using those spaces. So it gives you, yeah, but there's only those ones. Okay.
I also want to point out that when you get close to the intersection of Athenian and Centerbrook, those are not parking spaces, that's a turning lane.
Yeah,
So
so you can't have anyone parking there.
Correct.
Okay. And then the only other question people had was, will these be rentals or are you planning on them being owned? Obviously, someone can buy it and rent it, I understand that, but are you planning on them being rentals or owned? And then possibly do you have price points?
Yeah, these are all for sale.
Okay, so,
Price points are in the high 300s to low 400s.
okay. That's all I got.
Goolsby, are you back on? No, you're not on yet, Bear. Well, let's move on to somebody.
How about now?
Yes, you're on.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Michael, are we good on that? As far as the impervious coverage is concerned, I mean, that's something I assume you've looked at and you've talked about and.
Yes, and they're proposing a detention pond to make up for any deficiencies. So, yeah, we don't have an issue at this point with any of the stormwater runoff.
Okay, then the other thing I'm seeing is I'm seeing these radius on the alleyways. I assume the fire marshals, this is way too early for him to have looked at this, but that does have to occur, I assume.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry, the fire department has looked at this plan and met with Mr. Turner in the meetings that we had, and they're fine with the 24-foot alley and the turning radiuses. One of the discussions that we had is for garbage service and for fire trucks, the way to go in and the way to come out so that they can service the properties in the rear.
Wow, they're happy. They're okay with those radius then?
Yeah, you have to understand that in terms of firefighting, really only the 4 back properties would they have to get to through that alley. The rest of them, they do it from either Athenian or Centerbrook.
I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, that's if fire marshal says he's happy, he's happy. I'm just going to take notes for future project. When I look at it and I see the community space, I'm not enticed by that community space. It doesn't scream community space. What type of amenity? I assume you're going to input some type of amenities or something there because right now it's not going to scream community space. It's going to scream 4 people's backyard.
Yeah, we've not developed, we will develop that space in and create a plan for that. We'll have a dog park in there, seating area, there'll be sidewalks and things for people. And depending on what we find in terms of the demographics of who might be buying these, whether or not it has a small playground area for a young family to be going to, we'll be looking into that deeper as to what we're going to do. But it's not just going to be an open space and trees around it. Sorry, not be. We haven't gotten that deep into it.
No, I totally understand. I'm just throwing stones. That's all. I have driven around and I've seen this type of development in other locations, and it can be done and be done nicely. The thing that tends to make it that is that uniqueness, and I appreciate you stating that, and I'm just trying to stress that the uniqueness of each one, as opposed to a cookie cutter situation. So thank you for stating that.
Absolutely, thank you.
So that's all I've got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Adjournment.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mr. Turner, I'm liking pretty much the concept here. A little bummed from our last presentation on another developer. We're missing a story here as far as I was looking at there too for rooftop type situation. But the plan you presented here is pretty nice. Obviously, patio homes would be the same thing as we call like garden homes,
yes.
Which is badly needed in Universal City. We don't have enough of those. So I think my mother would jump on one of these in a hurry. The area, the topography there is, as we know, is a little hard to deal with. So yeah, I was wondering about the community space myself, but you've answered that. The detention area is good. I had another question, and it obviously wasn't that important because I can't think of it right now. But I will agree with with Mr. Goolsby's statement, that, you know, that it's not a cookie cutter. I'm glad that this second presentation isn't a presentation about, you know, doing some kind of apartment in that area to go with the ones on the side, because this is, I think, is a badly needed project for that area. It's a perfect spot for that, and you know, the homes are needed as well, and the aesthetics of it, I think, can really really improve that area as well. So I would just. The garages, I'm very, I love the way you've done that, because you've got the two, I don't know exactly what the size of the garages are, but the 2-car garages for a project of this size is a pretty nice amenity to have. Plus, so I guess when you say you have the, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is now you've got area for another 2 cars in the back. I take it that's basically a driveway, or?
Yeah, it's a driveway.
Okay, so when you say existing.
20 feet of space, so you're not, you know, you have a car that can, most places are 18 feet for parking. We did 20 feet in the back. And give you the answer, the width of the garage is 22 feet wide, which allows for some storage on one side, so you can set up some storage and keep stuff for Christmas and all that kind of stuff there. And then the depth is 21.5 feet, so you can bring in most cars, most SUVs, that sort of thing. Maybe not the big jumbo trucks that are out there these days, but it'll accommodate most anything that'll go in there.
Right, yeah, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Mr. Vaughan.
Dumb question, but I assume the trash pickup would be in the back and the trash truck can get down that alley without a problem. It's not going to be on the sidewalk of Athenian.
No, it won't. It'll be all collected in the back, and we'll be working with your trash service company, which we do a lot of times in San Antonio. We hire our own trash service to come pick up the trash, and also all the trash cans will have a barrier around, or a screen wall around it, so you won't see.
It's hard to tell on the side.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you really blew it up, you could see that back by the garage, there is a trash enclosure for each unit so that they can fit their 2 waste management bins inside. So even though they're in the back, we are still anticipating that they need to be out of sight.
Screen.
And then if I read the lot width right, it's 27.5 feet, is that right?
That's correct.
Is that, I don't know garden home typical dimensions, but is that a little bit tighter than normal? I guess I have 30 feet in my head as kind of a typical garden home width, is that?
No, this fits quite nicely, and no, it's great. We've actually built this floor plan in San Antonio before, except we actually made this one a little bit larger for the area.
Same width, same area. Share the location just so we can, I can check it out.
Oh, where?
Yeah, where?
This one is Kendall Street in near the Pearl. But if you go down there, take a look at it. I'd love to invite you down there. I'd like to take you to Westport. Westport Villas is the one that'll be most architecturally like what we're planning, called Westport. Matter of fact, probably go to our website. You can see all the projects we've done, and these are some past projects. And you'll see that one. But that particular floor plan is called Kendall Street.
Okay. I generally support it. I think my main concern is that traffic on that corner, so whatever we can do to alleviate as few cars as possible on Athenian, and then not having that stop sign become a big cluster. So as long as we can kind of address that, I think I would support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. I think one of the interesting sidebars on this is the huge apartment complex that is in Live Oak. We haven't seen a major traffic problem in that area off of Athenian or Centerbrook. So, but it's still a concern when you're going to have a consolidated group of 27, 29 homes, whatever it is. It is a potential factor, but so far the apartment complex has not caused a problem because there are ways to egress in and out. So that has made a difference. Okay.
I just have a quick question. I was concerned about the turn radius for fire and for trash. On the main alley through, does the retaining wall, the stone wall, block that entrance? You see, you kind of have the stone wall, and then it kind of, that's right in front of the road that goes the alley, the main alley. They'll be able to get in and out of that, correct? I mean, I show the alley, the wall's there, but it blocks off the entrance to the.
Oh, you're talking about them being able to drive in and back out and leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure the turning radiuses are adequate. I mean, in terms of backing in. If you're talking about somebody coming in off of one of the entrances off of either Athenian or Centerbrook, yeah, that very end unit next to the detention area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a situation where we maybe adjust and maybe lose one unit if we had to. But I think that's designed to where somebody can get in there and back out and leave.
Okay.
And a lot of times waste management, depending on the lane, won't back out because, you know, we have some small streets that they go down to. What the driver will do sometimes, not often, but if it's safe, they will actually walk down, grab the can. They have a hook on the truck that they stick it on, that takes it up to the top, empties it, and then they just take it back to where it was set out. So, yeah, waste management is used to working in small areas of this nature.
And those would be, the fire would probably approach those from the street. I see
Yes.
that, but I was just kind of concerned, like, that is a concern in that corner for that. But that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll make sure it works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also am concerned a little bit about the trash issue for a different reason, however. The only other area that I can really compare this to where, bless you, where we have so many individual units that are not central collection area, like a big dumpster or something, is over on Matham Landing, where there's a bunch of duplexes and it has about the same density as what you're proposing here. I draw people's attention to the properties directly across from Athenian Drive. You're about to put 7 homes on a space where 2 homes are currently located within that same area of space. So where you're going to have 4 trash cans for those 2 properties, we are now going to have 14 bins, because 27 units times the trash and recycling bin is 54 bins. The width of those trash bins extending out into the center of the street is going to take us from a 24-foot wide road back there down to about 18 feet every time there's a trash and recycling day. And as we all know, the bins get pushed around by the wind, by the rain, whatever else, so there's a possibility for movement there. My suggestion to you, sir, is would you consider, as part of that HOA, having a centralized location for trash collection, maybe 2 of them, 2 dumpster locations where the residents can drop off their trash, rather than having what would arguably be a crowded situation with 54 bin collections on whatever day trash and recycling are picked up for those days. So as to prevent that type of situation of having to, and then, 18 feet is going to be difficult for the trash truck to back down, pick up the bins, get back out, same thing for fire.
We'll look into that. I think those are all good comments. Our plan was to actually create a place for the recyclable as a central recyclable, like a dumpster or a space that they can take the recyclable. They would only have one for just trash pickup at their home. But we like, we want it close enough where somebody can come from the kitchen and go through the garage, put it in the garage, and not have to walk down when it's raining or whatever and try and get their trash out in time. So the idea is to make it so that it won't be on the 24-foot street. It'll be on the driveway in front of in one of the 2 parking spaces. So as they leave, they would leave if it's ready for pickup, it'll be in the 20 feet area between the
garage door and the alleyway.
Exactly. It wouldn't be blocking the alleyway.
Does that work for us? Maybe Randy can answer that question. Would that work for waste management? If let's say that there's a car in one of those external parking spaces and they put the trash and recycling bins on the driveway next to them, as close to the alleyway as possible, would that work for waste management to be able to come in close enough and grab those bins, dump them, and then move on to the next one?
I'm not going to speak for waste management, but if there's...
It would all be hypothetical here.
Yeah, if they have the parking that they need in the driveway, they can definitely make it down that driveway to
get those cars. They just have to be outside that driveway area.
And if I may, as a suggestion, sometimes what you see in this is, you see where you have the gap on the flare of between the flares of the driveway. Sometimes you'll see in neighborhoods where they'll actually put an area out there that is reserved for putting your trash cans on trash can pickup day. That might be a possibility as well. That way they're not in the alleys or in the driveways there, if it works. I'm just offering it as a suggestion.
Sure, that's my constructive feedback on that trash issue. Let me see, I had some more comments here, forgive me. No, that was it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, did you get some advice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I hope Scott took all the notes.
Well, actually, I mean, when you think about that property there, how small it is, this is maximizing the use of that property. And I think it's critical that we do need more patio type, garden type, because there's a huge market for it. And I think the conception of the plan that you had is really great. So look forward to having your presentation. Thank you very much. If you decide to proceed on, you can call the P&Z next.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, the next four tabs are all basically related to the library. The next three tabs are related to the library. So let's cover those and then we'll take a short break after that. So let's cover D, E, and F, and then we'll take a break before we get to questions. So right on now to tab number D, which is to discuss and to consider resolution 889-T-2023. The resolution to adopt a policy regarding senior citizens bingo program for the City of University City Public Library, establishing legislative findings, providing for adoption, and setting an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. State law allows for cities to, municipal libraries to conduct bingo. However, to make sure that we comply with the state law, we are recommending that we have a policy in place. That way we can guide people when they come in to play bingo to make sure that we're comporting with state law.
Okay. Go ahead, entertain a motion, then we'll open up for discussion.
Second.
We got Vaughan and second by Christina. All right, let's open up for discussion. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where was I? In the policy letter, we talk about a nominal value for prizes to be awarded. Is there a definition? Is there a set, whose determination? Is it like $5, $10, something like that?
I believe it's $5 increments. I'm going to look at moving on that one.
It said 10.
It says 10 in there.
What does it
Oh,
say?
is it 10? I apologize. It's $10. It does say $10. Normally it's $5. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the ones that have the game rooms are $5 increments.
It says no more than $10.
Okay, I must have seen it somewhere else.
Understanding that most people don't come to play bingo to win money. Well, some of them are happy even if they win $1, but they come for the enrichment and the activity. It's not necessarily something to make money.
Social interaction.
Yes, sir.
Would we be purchasing these nominal gifts from city or library funds, or would they potentially be donated? Would the bingo events be sponsored maybe?
So it's not for fundraising and commercial purposes, obviously, but I don't know where you get your nominal $10 prizes that the people win.
So right now we play bingo. They do prizes that are donated by people. So we're actually not doing anything with money.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a white elephant, so to speak.
A garage sale or a garage cleaning / bingo game. Sounds
I have some prizes to donate then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
See, it's Patrick.
Oh,
I do think it says in here that they may tap the Friends of the Library potentially. So there could be some participation there. Just set it in the policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Typically it's books.
that makes sense. All right, anyone else? All right, we have a motion in seconds. Let's call for
Mayor Goolsby.
Mr. Buck. Mr.
I'm so
Goolsby.
sorry, I'm supposed to be watching.
You're so
my
used to
phone.
saying Mr. Buck when I'm up there, huh?
My fault.
Yeah, this is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Is this kind of brought on because of what we were talking about with the Red Lodge landscape architect, and let's set some things up and see how it works, and if becomes an amazing thing, it might move forward and into a building of its own.
Are we talking about bingo?
Senior events, so yes.
Oh, so we've always done bingo at the library, we've just never had a policy. Christina had gone to some training and it indicated, in there they indicated that libraries should not be doing bingo. Obviously, in consultation with our city attorney, we have found that we can do bingo as a senior enrichment, but we thought in order to cover the city, we should have the policy in place so that when people come to play and we hold the bingo games, that we know what parameters we're operating under. So it doesn't necessarily mean.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're telling me we already have bingo. Is it like quite popular? Do you have any idea of the numbers?
It's the most popular event that we have at the library. Perhaps the food event that we have is a little more popular, but bingo happens all the time. The food tasting that we have only occurs once every 2 months. But yes, this is a very successful program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Sorry, Bear, I'll try to make sure I look up every time. Okay, anyone else? All right, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye. Okay, now we have a policy. Very good. Let's move on to tab number E then. Discuss and to consider Resolution 889H 2023, resolutions deleting in their entirety the 2018 circulation policy and the 2010 library card policy, adopting a 2023 circulation policy for the municipal library of the city of Universal City, establishing legislative findings, providing deletion and adoption, and setting an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. We did make a couple of changes in section 1, which is on page 1 of 9. I inadvertently had put that the 2018 and the 2010 were going to be adopted. That has been changed to be rescinded, and then we just did a few minor grammatical and paging cleanup after that.
Okay, move for approval.
Second.
Vaughan, second by Councilmember Najarian. Any discussion further, anyone? Mr. Buck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for coming out tonight to discuss the policy with us. I do have a couple of questions. Notification that a person's privileges have been denied or revoked. We write that it can be appealed. Is there a specific form that appeal must take? Must it be in writing, or can somebody verbally appeal? What's the process for that appeal?
Are we discussing the circulation policy or the patron code of conduct? That sounds like the patron.
I'm terribly sorry. That does say tab F. Sorry. Never mind, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we are on tab E, right?
Yes, he is an
So we'll consider you this. Anybody else have any? Barry, you got anything? Okay, all right. No more discussion. Let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We move on to tab number G, discuss and consider, F. Right? Discuss and to consider resolution 8899, 2023, a resolution amending the patron code of conduct for the municipal library passed by the Council of the City of Universal City, establishing legislative findings, providing amendment, and setting an effective date. Let's call for the entertain a motion, then we'll go for discussion.
Move for approval. Second, Mr. Mayor.
Vaughan, second by Councilmember Buck. Discussion, Mr. Buck.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, yes, I do have a question. You've already heard it. Would you like for me to repeat it?
If you don't mind, sir.
Yes, the appeals process, if a patron's privileges are denied or revoked, it says that they can appeal that decision. What form must that appeal take? Can they send an email? Does it have to be on paper, in writing? Can they verbally appeal the decision?
We always prefer everything in writing.
Would an email suffice to the librarian?
In writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would go to the library director.
Okay. Would you consider putting something in that an appeal should be in writing?
Yes. We'll put the written appeal must be filed within 7 days.
A written appeal must be filed within 7 days
one
via
word.
email or in person in writing, something
Yeah,
like
we'll
that.
just say written.
Thank you. The director's decisions are final. While I don't care to call your authority into question, could they appeal theoretically to the city manager?
Well, they technically could. This is also shaped from other various library policies, Shirt's library to be exact. So because we have regular interactions with more people, and usually by that point, the staff will let me know what's going on and we'll keep records, and so that's when I would like my decision to be final for my staff to feel.
And from a city manager perspective, you never want to usurp the authority that you put in your staff for the various positions. For instance, at the golf course, we have folks who have in the past attended the golf course and had very disruptive behavior. The staff has revoked their privileges for being at the golf course. I've been called by those people, the mayor has been called by those people, not knowing the full situation and the history of that person. We're not going to undermine the staff by giving them their privileges back.
That makes sense.
Thank
Makes
you, sir.
perfect sense, absolutely. And then the last question I had was about the prohibited activities in paragraph 6. It includes horse playing. That's kind of that's vernacular, I suppose, that's slang. I suppose that would be generally disruptive behavior is what would be termed horse playing. Perhaps consider making it a little more specific as to what types of activities, instead of, I think everybody knows what horse playing is, but it's very subject to interpretation. So that's a suggestion. And then prohibited activities includes bicycling and running. I suppose that's only inside of the library, not on the library grounds, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just so everyone can hear me, sorry. That's correct.
Good. Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Anyone else? All right, call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Vaughan,
Aye.
Councilmember Buck,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor, by way of elucidation, before we have the mayor actually sign the resolution, we'll add in the word written, and then we will do an attempt at defining the word horseplay, such as, or for example.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, we have G, H, and I coming up in a minute here, so let's take a quick 5-minute recess and come right back.
Read my mind.
We promise it'll only be 5 minutes. Okay, everybody, we need to reconvene. We've got major items still on the agenda for this Thank you. Okay, let's move on to chapter G then. Discuss and to consider Resolution 953, 2023, resolution of the City Council of Universal City approving the adoption of a fund balance policy, the general fund and water and sewer funds, the stormwater fund, and the venue project fund, and providing an effective date. So let's press on, City Manager. Yeah.
Mayor, thank you. As you know, we had this up for discussion earlier. There was no formal action taken on it, a lot of discussion. I had indicated that I would be bringing it back because we are preparing our budget. We need some direction from City Council. I know last time some people wanted a low number, some people wanted a higher number, a few people talked about a range. I put in suggestions for you. Just need some direction from the City Council on what you would like us to do with this, whether you want to adopt a fund balance policy or not adopt a fund balance policy. If you do want to adopt it, then we need some direction on what you would like the number of months to be in the 4 areas or 5 areas that I've inserted them.
Okay, let's open up this one for discussion first before I Mr. Vaughan.
So I have handouts, so they can start, so you have those in front of you. But there's that top page. Last time, if you weren't here, I gave you just kind of what the other cities have in fund balance. Yes, sir. And so I updated it for 2022. Some of them, we don't have 2022 numbers yet. But you'll see that the average on there for cities now it's grown to just under 10 months. And we're at the top end of that based on 2021 figures. And so the city has recommended 12 months. And I'm just going to get on my soapbox a little bit just in case you might know what this policy does. But the policy is designed to have us set a target for how much we should keep in reserves. And so that we all kind of would agree, if we adopt the policy on, this is a number that we don't want to go below. And then if we have money that's over that, we can consider including it inside our budget process. And so the last discussion we had, I kind of had this handout and I kind of thought maybe 9 months-ish might be a compromise. It sounds like a lot of my council members thought a higher number was appropriate, and the city's kind of thrown out 12. And I think that's probably a reasonable number. That's a compromise of kind of what was discussed last time. And so I would like to approve this policy with what the city has recommended as far as the targets for the various funds. The only thing that I would recommend taking out is the fund balance assignments, which is on page 3, which we have a choice in terms of whether we want to give the city manager the authority to set money aside for whatever purpose she feels appropriate. And I would think that we'd probably just take that out and leave that as a council action, and if we want to set money aside, that the council would decide to set that money aside. So that's what I would recommend, is that we approve this policy as written with that one change. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. More discussion. I guess,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember the last time when we had the discussion, I did a lot of research before the meeting, and the recommendations were for like a city like Houston to have 2 months of operating reserve. And obviously that doesn't work for a city of our size, even though 2 months of Houston budget surplus far exceeds probably 2 or 3 years of our operating annual budget. So I really don't think that having only 2 months is certainly not feasible for us. I think that 12 months as a minimum is a good idea, fellow council members. But I would also advocate for having a maximum, because if all we have is a single number on there that our target is 12 months, is there a percentage of plus or minus 12 months? Or do we say that our goal is to have between 12 but not, or a minimum of 12, but not more than X number of months? And that gives us the range so that we're not constantly having to amend our budget potentially as that fund balance reserve goes up as we have to adjust because we didn't buy that new vehicle for public works, or we didn't have to hire that new position for whatever. Now that puts us at 13 months. Do we need to go back in and revise our budget so that we can get that reserve balance back down? You see what I'm saying? This allows us to have more of minimum of this, not more than that. So my personal suggestion to my fellow council members would be 12 to 15 months, maybe 12 to 14 months. I'd like to hear what everybody has to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Paul?
Oh, well, first was, I had missed what you were talking about.
He's starting,
When the one thing you were talking about changing on what page?
Page 3, second paragraph, it says assigned fund balance authority. The city council authorizes the city manager as the authority responsible for the assignment of the fund balance to a specific purpose as approved by this fund balance policy. It is a little bit redundant because obviously if council is going to approve the spending down of the funds balance policy, it indicates in here on how that needs to be done. You would probably be directing me to do that anyway, so I'm okay with that being taken out. But typically it just says that if you're going to spend down or make a change to your fund balance policy, you're going to direct me to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you. And also, as far as Councilman Buck's input, I do like the idea of the 12 to 14. Seems not only reasonable, but a nice fluctuation, you know, what we can decide to do from there. So I'd be on board for actually both of those changes.
Okay, just before I get you to this.
I just want to point out, so on the maximum that you're asking for, procedurally, you're going to be, and the city council will be reviewing this annually about the time do we get to the budget, which should be right after we finish the audit, right? Which will tell us what we have in our annual fund balance. If there is more than 12 months, at that time you have the option to choose to spend that down or to target it toward other capital improvement projects. So it's The range isn't going to really matter what the high end is because you're going to have every year the authority to make a recommendation or amongst yourselves if you want to spend that down and take it down to 13 months. And then if the next year when the audit comes back, it says we have 16 months, then you're going to make the determination whether you want to leave it there or spend it for a capital improvement. So the numbers that I inputted, back to what Mr. Vaughan had said, the numbers that I inputted were not based on my expertise. I actually checked with our bond counsel and with our rate people, bond rating. So what they had indicated to me from a bonding company, they don't look to see how much you have in there. If it's more than your minimum, their concern is that long-term, as a credit-worthy agency, that we have the minimum in place and that we don't go below that minimum. If we're over that, good, but they're not even going to take that into consideration. They want to know what our minimum is. So that's why I went with the 12 months because that was the recommendation. On the ones for the water, sewer, and other funds, I also checked with our rate consultant on those, and these are the numbers that they recommended based on industry standards. And then I verified those numbers with our financial advisor for our credit worthiness also, and those were the numbers that they agreed upon for our city.
So, I'm sorry, am I still up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So regarding the water, sewer, stormwater, and venues, do we currently meet those minimum balances?
Yes, sir, we do.
By how much?
We are at those. We always, for the water and sewer, the stormwater, those are always our targets. We always want to have something in reserve. The only thing that we've never had a reserve for is our venue project, and that's because we've always had the debt service, which took up most of the venue project. So the recommendation from the bond attorney was 6 months. Not the bond attorney, the financial advisor.
Very well, thank you. And I don't think I was on because Mr. Najarian had some comments.
That's fine with that.
I apologize, everybody.
I'm for just doing what's in this, just the 12 months, 3 months, 6 months for each one, and then taking out the word and then that's it.
Okay, so we have one recommendation, Ms. Hackman.
I was just going to say, I felt like the language.
And Mr. Goolsby has a question when we're done.
Bear will get you in a second.
I felt the language indicating the minimum was good, and then it said you may consider using those funds going forward, so that I felt like it gave us the flexibility to make a decision if we did exceed that. And then, Ms. Turner, I was just going to clarify for the debt service fund, was it 3 months or 6 months that they recommended? Because I think you said 6 and it's got 3 months listed.
I apologize, yes. For debt service, it's 3 months, or every time we issue debt, we have to put a certain amount of money aside. It's called a reserve or a fund balance reserve to make sure that the debt can be paid off. And so it's either 3 months or the fund balance reserve as required by the bond ordinance, whichever is greater.
Mr. Goolsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I am a little slow sometimes. Ms. Turner, you did say that they don't care what our months in reserve are. They're more concerned that we exceed the months in reserve. Is that so? If we had like 1 month in reserve, as long as we're not less than that, they're happy?
No. I'm saying if we set that our minimum is 12 and we have 17, the 13 through the 17, they're not as concerned about. It's the 12 month that we set that they will always be concerned about. So they're concerned if we have less, but they're not as concerned if we have more. Because they know if we have more, then the council is at liberty to spend that down. But they don't want us to go below the 12 months.
Okay, but we set the 12. What would they recommend we set that at?
That was the discussion I had with the financial advisor, 12 months.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have Spawn 12 months, and then we have a combination of 12, not 12 to 14. So whoever makes the motion needs to make that pretty clear, so that as we go to vote on it, where we stand. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, can we inquire with Mr. Gould, with Councilmember Goolsby, as to his thoughts on a maximum amount of, maximum number of months of reserve, or whether you're happy with it like it is?
I could care less about having a maximum. If I go over my 12, and I would love to be able to spend it down, I just want to know what my minimum is. But I like the idea of if we have something coming up, we need to replace a water pipe somewhere, we're going to set the money aside. We know that's what we're doing. If we have a maximum, I'm afraid that might hamstring our efforts. So I like the idea of being able to bank that going for future going forward. If we put in, if we put a top on it, I feel like that may hamper us in the future. That's all. But I'm not planning on watching that fund balance grow beyond the 12. If that's our minimum we're going to set, I would love to see it. Just, let's spend it down and let's see what we can do to save some money.
So the whole issue clearly is not to, as Ms. Turner said, the bond people are not that concerned over the minimum. It's just if we have that 12-month fund balance, and that's what they're concerned about. If it goes lower, then they're really concerned.
Yes, that
if it goes
means
above, they're not critical.
They're concerned that we are properly managing and handling our finances on a regular basis by not going below the 12 months. Remember that what's written within this policy is that come budget time, if we find that we are below the 12, then within that budget that we have coming up, or the next 2 budgets, we have to make a plan to replenish that. I also want to make sure that we understand in terms of the use of the fund balance, that it does have restricted uses, and that it should be for emergencies, non-recurring expenditures, or major capital purchases. We're not talking about salaries and regular maintenance and operation type things. We're talking about capital purchases and emergencies.
I think everybody agrees with that.
Some people actually refer this to as your emergency fund, maybe if you think of it that way.
Okay.
Well, sorry, Mr. Well, I make a motion that we accept it as written with the one change that Councilman Vaughan had, excuse me, indicated on page 3. I'm sorry, I got a horse here.
Okay.
That's
all right. There's a motion by Councilman Najarian.
Second.
Vaughan. Oh, he beat you. Councilmember Vaughan beat you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I think this has been very fruitful, very good. So let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Very good. Very good. Motion passes. Let's move on then to tab number H. The next 2 are just discussions and presentations. H is discussions, council initiatives for the FY 2024 budget. So I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we do have a comprehensive plan. It hasn't been updated. We were set to do that during the COVID period, and then we couldn't have meetings, and we had this confusion with Zoom. And as you know, when we do the comprehensive plan, it takes a lot of input from a lot of people. So we are preparing in this year's budget to have an item in there for updating of that comprehensive plan. So what I thought would be prudent to do is bring the plan that we really haven't been able to work on in the last couple of years forward to you, so that you have an idea to understand what the initiatives were, all of the initiatives that were in that particular comprehensive plan, and then the initiatives where they are today, the ones that the City Council prioritized. So I know I threw a lot of information into the cover sheet. I primarily did that because I recognize that some of you did not participate in that project, or maybe didn't live here, and I wanted you to understand what we had gone through and why we came up with the initiatives that we have. To that end, your Exhibit A, which is the green one, I hope the color coding helps some of you kind of guide you what you're looking at. That is all of the initiatives that came from the comprehensive plan. Once those were identified, then council actually went through them and went through a voting process, and they prioritized the plans, the initiatives, so that staff could kind of focus where we were working on for the next 5 years. So the council initiatives that the staff has been working on is Exhibit B, which is your blue notes. And as you'll see, we have 3 identifiers. We have the completed, in progress means that we're still working, we started it and we're still working on it, and N means not yet started. So I apologize, there's a mosquito up here, I'm sure he wants to bite me. So I put this forth for city council because obviously there are some items in there that we have, are in progress and maybe haven't completed that you would want to make sure that we have added into the upcoming budget cycle. And then I left at the bottom just a couple other blanks unless, in case there was some other council initiative that was up above that you as a council wanted to see considered for this budget cycle.
Okay. Anything else, Kim? All right, let me open it up for discussion. Ms. Bulman?
So I don't look like so much of a crazy person. Phil and I, Councilmember Vaughan and I had asked to kind of do like a pre-budget discussion before we do the budget, and you said this would kind of be a good place to do that. So I have packets for everyone that I'm going to pass out real quick, but while I'm going through it, I just wanted to discuss what the what the residents would like to see in this 2024 budget presentation and kind of discuss some of the things that the residents would like to see. So in these booklets are just basically a handout of what they'd like to see in those presentations, and then what they would like to not see heavily funded, and then what they would like to see funded. So I basically just left little notes. What they'd not like to see heavily funded in that 2024 budget is more playgrounds for the park department and things for younger children, as well as any non-golfing related items for the golf course, meaning anything on the wedding or the event side of the golf course. They'd prefer not to see those heavily funded. What the residents would like to see funded in 2024 is young adults and adult activities and programs, better marketing for the city, including events, social media, and the website. The EDC specifically working on marketing to get more business in, police and fire staffs fully needed, and then the residents expected to see a lower tax rate. I also put together in this packet just a kind of so everyone could see what the residents were hoping for, which in the beginning is, I don't have one because I grabbed one for me, but she didn't hand me one. Give me 1 second. Sorry. They'd like to see an organizational chart for each department. Thank you. I should have saved one behind myself. Sorry. They wanted to see an organizational chart of who's on top and how that works, and then a paragraph about their goals, and then their staff salaries and what they're expected if they want to hire new staff. Then they'd like to really see like an operational budget that tells you, what has to be paid and everything, and then your additional expenses. And then they were asking anything that's over $20,000 to have an explanation and a drop down in further detail. So I just kind of set up like a mock-up. These are all fake numbers. None of this is legitimate, but just kind of what the residents would like to see this year, since last year's budget presentation was not very fruitful, and it was really hard to, sometimes it would just say $400,000 for park improvements, and that's it, and it wouldn't break down what those were. So the residents were hoping to get more input, that way they could have more input when budget season comes, and they'd be able to view things a little bit easier. So that's just kind of why I put this packet together, so that the city kind of knew what the residents wanted to see this year when it comes to budget season. Now I know we're only a month away, so I know all this might not be possible this year, but just setting an expectation that these are what the residents would like to see in the coming years, just a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more information. I know I, as a council member, have the option to get those drop downs and all this information, but I'm asking that the residents also be able to get this information right up front. I think that's it, sorry.
Mayor, I would just remind you, thank you, I appreciate the information. I would just remind you that the information that you have before you was also given to you by residents. 346 of them participated. And I recognize that you're getting detailed information from others, but we still are working on this comprehensive plan. And so if we can kind of direct our focus that way, and then when we have our next comprehensive plan, that would be the time for any new input to be given into the what people would like to see in the future budgets.
And that would also include input from the residents as well.
Yes,
well,
correct.
Absolutely.
Okay, I guess I have a, okay. I guess I have a question then, because then this tab H is not discussing like what we want to see for this upcoming budget. It's just about the comprehensive plan?
It's the items that the city council identified in the comprehensive plan that were the council priorities based on the input from these 346 residents.
Okay.
So I'm giving it to you as an opportunity to look at it and to discuss it amongst yourselves so you can give direction to the staff. If there are initiatives in there that you want us to make sure that we include in and have a pricing available for those items.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate, because I was hoping that we were gonna be able to have a pre-budget discussion, but it appears that's not what we're doing, and we're just discussing the comprehensive
You're
plan.
going to have a pre-budget discussion, and that's when we get to July 12th.
Well, but that's a budget workshop.
It's a council budget workshop. At that time, we get lots of information and lots of detail, and then you'll see everything that's in there, and if you want to ask for more information after that, obviously, we're going to get it for you. But you have to understand from the staff perspective, we're already 3.5 months into the budget process, preparing now to get it out to the city council. And then the other thing is that we really need to consider what the people in the last 5 years have told us that they want in the budget cycle too, and honor kind of some of the decisions made by past council members. But obviously, we will give you plenty of time during the budget work session. And back to the whole issue on the details. So in the past, we gave a lot of detail, and then the council say they didn't want to see all the detail. They wanted highlights. So then we broke it down into highlights, and now you have us telling us again that some of you would like detail. If you could give us some clearer direction on what you want to see in terms of detail or non-detail, that would be appreciative.
Okay, so I think that what she's saying is that there's something you believe that we need to have included is now that this is the time to bring that up. And what I would suggest that we do is we make this another agenda item next time, and we can provide our input either prior to that. I would like to see it prior to that so that at least the staff would know what you've got, what you have in mind in speaking to the current residents who are not part of this, may or may not have been part of the comprehensive plan when we put it together over 5 years ago.
I apologize, that's 2 weeks away, and like a few short days after that, we're going to be finalizing the budget. If we could get some direction tonight, it will help us finish up the budget process.
Okay.
So I guess that's done, but I guess I do have a couple questions about the comprehensive plan, since we're talking about that. If we're gonna talk about the comprehensive plan, the new one that's going to be happening.
If you approve it.
If we approve it, okay, so that will come to council, the new comprehensive plan will come to council, and we'll have to approve this new comprehensive plan?
The budget item, it'll be in the budget.
Okay.
If you want it, you have to approve it within the budget. It's not cheap, just so you understand. You're talking about
that was my next question, but
$250,000 or more.
Okay, so that's on
to
my
update
list.
that.
Okay.
And if you approve it, then we'll go out with an RFP for consultants. One will be selected, and then they will go through the entire comprehensive plan process with us. It'll be done by a third party in order to ensure fairness and accessibility and equity.
And we'll have a discussion about this?
Eventually, it will get back to city council as well.
Will we'll have a discussion before just approving the comprehensive plan, or it's just gonna be part of budget season all rolled into one and we're just gonna approve it?
No, you're going to have to approve the funding for the comprehensive plan, but as we go through the comprehensive plan process, which by the way is quite lengthy and very arduous, and you'll be doing a lot of extra meetings.
Yeah.
You'll have input along the way on that.
Okay, because that was the one the residents were concerned about, because they wanted to make sure that they got to be a part of this, that meetings were posted and.
It includes surveys, small focus groups. Yep. Council has their own work sessions individually. Each department has its own work sessions. Okay. That framework gets set up by the consultants because they obviously are the experts in comprehensive plans, and we always want to make sure that we use the third-party agency to have the fairness issue and make sure that one issue that might be a pet project from either a staff, a resident, or a citizen doesn't take high priority by doing it ourselves.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess that's all I have then.
Okay.
I appreciate the work that went into giving us the status of the comprehensive plan. I know we're coming at it, we're close to the presentation, you guys have been working hard on it. I do love the idea of trying to get like the stretch goals or whatever for different department heads. I know we ran into that issue last time of hearing about, oh, this would have been nice to have at the time we were setting the tax rate. And so I think in Ashton's presentation here, that would be nice to know from the department heads if they had a wish goal, or nice to have like, we really feel like we're lacking in this area. Given we're trying to manage to this budget number, this is what we're presenting. But if there were a little extra money that we could look at, this would be nice.
Yes, and we always try to work that in, understanding that sometimes as the budget manager, I have to rein them in because the nice to haves sometimes are gigantic wish lists, right? So sometimes we have to bring them down to reality. For instance, last year when council was having its discussion, there was some consideration about adding the firefighters and the police positions. And then there was a very lengthy discussion with throwing around numbers for a tax rate. And I guess somebody proposed a tax rate that did not include the additional police and fire positions, which are in the comprehensive plan. And so that didn't happen. Now, we worked with both of those departments to try to figure out with some additional budgeting that they had from either projects that came in under budget or vacancies to try to assist them to get those extra folks in there. So I can tell you, based on the discussion that we had with City Council at the last budget session and the items that you indicated that you wanted to see in there, those have been added in. Again, the finance director and I have to kind of do a reality check with the budget, but we will identify for you anything that we have taken out of the budget in order to make it reasonable. And then if there is extra funding, and then council can give some input on which one of those items they would like added back in.
Yes, Mr. Rockland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the way I understand it, Ms. Turner, you're seeking our input for what items would we like to see put into the budget for fiscal year 2024. Do those ideas need to come off of the comprehensive plan, or could I pull one out of theoretical thin air?
It's preferable if it comes from the comprehensive plan because that is the planning document that we work from.
Yes,
if you pull one out of the air, let's just hope it's reasonable, and the ability for us to identify that project and to budget for it, we have enough time.
Mr. Mayor, is there a possibility for me to ask about another initiative in the city that has previously been discussed and ask if there's any movement on it? Sure. As a possible initiative.
Yes.
The right turn lane off of Pat Booker onto 1604 headed towards I-35. I believe the last discussion that we had was we had approached TxDOT, and TxDOT said, maybe you're welcome to do it yourself if you want. Is that still the same status?
It is. Let me ask Randy, the consultant that's working on that, how much further has he gotten in TxDOT?
We are still in the design that he has to submit, and we will process it through MPO funding to try to get the funding or identify any TxDOT revenues that they may have.
Do we have a ballpark figure as to what, if Universal City were to take on that financial burden on our own, absent any state level grants or money from TxDOT, approximately what it would cost to install that right turn lane?
Approximately, they're looking at, because based on you got to have X amount of dollars you can go after these funds. So right now the early estimates is around $1 million to do both ends.
$1 million, and if we were using OPM, other people's money, we at least would have to put up 30% of that, maybe 20 to 32%, depending on what the available dollars were.
Would that count as an infrastructure project that we could use to lower down our fund levels down to that 12-month mark?
That would be a council decision.
I'd like to see that given some priority. I know that traffic on Pat Booker every single afternoon, especially Monday through Friday, is a parking lot from just about Forum all the way up to that right turn, and it frustrates me to no end when somebody's in that right lane waiting to go straight and they're holding up all of that traffic. I would propose to my fellow council members that we ask the city staff to prioritize that, and if, on behalf of the residents of Universal City who would greatly appreciate the reduced wait times, getting, not that I'm anxious for people to leave Universal City, don't get me wrong, but for them to get home to their loved ones in the afternoons. If we could ask the city staff to prioritize that project as one method of reducing that level of congestion on Pat Booker headed towards 1604.
We can certainly look at that. One thing I do want to caution you on is if we are going out for OPM, other people's money, that sometimes their lead time is longer than maybe in what you would want it done. So we would certainly want to try to leverage that. I can't even guarantee you that even if you put aside 20%, let's say $200,000, that would happen this fiscal year. But we will do our best to get some kind of an estimate on what our match would be, and we'll have those figures for you when we come back with the budget, and then council can make the decision at that time whether they want to fund that project as a priority or anything else, over anything else that's in the budget.
Yes, ma'am, because right now I think, it's been in discussion for a while, and I can understand that TxDOT goes, you know what, we have a lot bigger priorities right now than installing a right turn lane on Pat Booker Road. But I think in the interest of the residents of Universal City, and it would have a direct impact on the residents of Universal City being able to get out of here, even if TxDOT and we don't get OPM, I like that term by the way, that we still move forward with that project. That would be my input as a priority for the 2024 budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Your input is, that's what she's asking for, so she's got it. Mr. Vaughan.
I have the next page of my handout. It's Phil's fabulous list of budget requests. But trying to keep it more in the line of what Ms. Turner would like us to talk about. I do have to say that I would like the tax rate to be a flat tax on the average homeowner, and I have that calculated in the back there, but it's about 49 cents. So I'm hoping that the budget that comes back to us is somewhere in that range. Because we're still the 25th highest tax rate out of 29 in our area, so I'd like to be more towards the middle if we can. But I think a lot of this is going to revolve around capital projects in the budget, and Christina's point, and I'm sorry, Councilmember Fitzpatrick's point and Councilmember Bulman's point about specifically identifying those capital projects in the budget that comes to us is going to be important, because I think there's going to be a lot of discussion. Like Councilmember Buck said about wanting to do that right turn lane, that's going to be something, it might have to be a give and take on, well, we don't want this project, but we do want that project. So we need them kind of outlined so then we can have that discussion.
Right.
The other thing that I'll mention is there was discussion about that right turn lane not being in next year's budget cycle, but part of that fund balance policy is that we're talking about 12 months unassigned without we haven't set it aside for anything, but it would be easy to carve out, say, $1 million and set it aside for the right turn lane on Pat Booker, and then it's not part of that 12 months. And even if it happens 3 years from now, we've set it aside and it's stuck there waiting for that project to happen. That's something that could be done. One other thing on there that I guess that I just want to point out is this is probably not going to be popular, but I know that Live Oak does dispatch for Selma, and I know Schertz does dispatch for Cibolo for around 200,000, and our personnel is well over 500,000. I'd like to see some kind of consideration if that's a possibility for us to partner with a neighbor city and have some savings, and our personnel might be absorbed by some of those other neighbor cities. So I know there's some pluses and minuses to that, so I would love to see some consideration to that. And then Councilmember Fitzpatrick's point too, I think each department can add a narrative about what they would like to accomplish in their budget, and what they're working towards would help explain like what's changing in their budget and why they like it. That would help us from make a decision upon those. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Bear. Yes, Mr. Webb. Oh, Bear. We'll get to you, man.
Yes, sir.
Bear, you're up, sir.
Thank you, sir. So one thing that shows up in this one and in one of the most recent, things that we've asked the citizens to answer was the parks thing, and that was under cultural. We talked about insufficient volunteer management, and it was also brought up that if we had some type of coordinator that could coordinate these types of events, that's one of those pieces that kind of fits with what we've heard recently versus what the citizens in the past that we worked with 5 years ago, what we tried to implement for them as well. Because we all know it doesn't happen overnight. So, Ms. Turner, I appreciate this list and the fact that we've helped everybody over the last 5 years, and this list is really, this blue list looks fantastic. So you're asking what we can take when the greens are blue. Well, the event coordinator, or not event coordinator, but I just lost it. A volunteer coordinator, somebody like that can also help out with the events for seniors or some of the other pieces is one of those positions that I can see happening. But I'm also big on trying to make sure that we do maintain our fire and our police. So my thing is making sure that our minimum numbers are met as far as the life safety, but also for the for the enjoyment of life as well. So if we can look at those, I would appreciate that. That might be my pet project, along with that Pat Booker Road thing. Yeah. So, but there's my 2 cents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's fair. Mr. Buck, did you have something to add?
I forgot, Mr. Mayor. No, I remember. It was a question about my esteemed colleague, Mr. Vaughan's flat levy on an average home. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What would be involved with the concept of levying a flat rate on the average home? What do you envision with that?
Sorry, I should clarify. So most homes have a cap of 10% increase in value, and so most homes are going up more than 10 last year and this year. So everybody's basically going up 10 on a homestead. And so if everybody went up 10%, the rate that would make them pay the same amount that they paid last year would be 49 cents. So on that sheet, I have an example home in Coconut Ridge. I don't know the person. I just picked them, what their value was last year, what their value is this year, and what the rate would be to make them pay the same amount, not more. And that would still bring in more revenue than it brought in last year, about 220,000 more than last year, because the new properties and because the businesses are not necessarily capped to a 10% change. So I didn't mean to say that we're going to charge everybody the same. I meant that not everybody's going to pay $100 a piece. It's going to be everybody pays roughly what they paid last year.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we just need to be cautious because state law does require that we actually review and approve a budget before we start talking about a tax rate. I appreciate your thoughts and your presentations, but just need to remind you that you have to review the budget before you start discussing your tax rate.
Yes, ma'am. Understood. And I apologize, it wasn't my intent to get into a discussion about the rate itself, but rather the concept of that flat levy on the average home. So, Mr. Mayor, if I could do a little bit of that back and forth with Mr. Vaughan, if that's okay?
I'm sorry?
Can we do a little bit of back and forth discussion across the dais?
As long as it's not about the tax rate.
Yes, sir. Good. So it sounds, Mr. Vaughan, what you're proposing then is something similar to a homestead exemption for all residences in Universal City, regardless of whether they're eligible for the homestead exemption or not?
No, I was just doing a rough calculation on what, if we adopted a certain thing that's not a tax rate, what that might generate, and we're running some scenarios. Nothing fancier than that.
Okay. Very well, sir. Thank you.
Mayor, if I might address the volunteer coordinator. So I know Regina's in the room. She is actually our volunteer coordinator for all of our events. She does work with the other departments that have volunteers as well. Christina, who has left, actually coordinates all of the volunteers at the library and does their training and their emergency training and everything with them. And then the police has the UCPAAA, and they actually have a volunteer coordinator in their department that directly works with the UCPAAA along with the chief of police. So I believe that we have that. And we don't use as many volunteers at the animal shelter as we used to because it's a little bit of a liability. It's not a centralized in one place, but I do believe that we have sufficient staff who is carrying on that particular aspect of the initiative at this time. Is that a thumbs up? I can't tell. Yes.
Also, let me mention that a special session that's going on in Austin right now can have an unbelievably significant impact on the future of municipalities. One side wants to go with a 5% appraisal cap increase maximum. The other side wants to go to homestead exemption for up to $100,000 and add another $10,000 for retired. So whatever one of those two comes up, it's going to have a significant impact on the way we have to look at the way this budget will go. So this will be not for next year, it'll be the following year. But that's something we all have to take into consideration. We don't know what our wonderful friends in Austin are gonna levy upon us. Those unfunded mandates that we get from Austin are sometimes less than desirable. So we're gonna have to be prepared for it. We have to really be very darn careful. So that's not a word of caution, that's just a word of, we know that something's gonna come out of this special session. Whether it's the way the governor wants it, or whether it's the House wants it, we're not we're sure. Will they compromise? We don't know. Anyway, more to come, Ms. Bulman.
If we're going off the green and the blue, I guess, for council initiatives, I'm gonna fight for more adult activities. It was said 5 years ago, it was said again in the Parks Master Plan, like everyone is very much so craving more adult activities and programs. So I would like to see that funded or a line item or something about it for the 2024 budget.
Maybe to your effect, I can ask Brandon to talk about the adult sports programs that we've actually added into the Parks and Recreation program.
Yeah, currently one of the ones that has been popular here for quite a few years is the disc golf. So we got the Lago Disc Golf Association that heads that. They are the ones that put on tournaments and stuff like that for the adults throughout the parks, and ours is pretty popular that we have out there in the Silo Creek. We also had some seniors that came to the Parks and Rec meeting requesting a pickleball court, which Parks Partners assisted us in funding along with A&A Plumbing. So we were able to accomplish that. It's become quite popular in the parks with the seniors having it nightly out there. And then here recently, Alamo City Sportsplex has approached us, and now they want to do adult two-person volleyball at our UC Park, which they've donated new poles, nets, and we've improved the court size for them to actually put on leagues for the people that would come out there. And they're also going to do training and stuff like that for that. So those are the latest ones that we've been doing for the adults.
So it's a start.
Just not a lot of like indoor. I guess everything's outdoor, which is.
Well, volleyball is indoor.
Okay. Well, if they're doing said outdoor.
Oh, you're doing sand.
Yeah, so I think it's just like the, people are looking for like the indoor, like.
Bingo?
Yeah, like things like that, like a little bit more center focused around that, not just bingo, but I think that was kind of some of the adult programs. A little older, I guess. I guess when I say adult, I mean senior and adult, but obviously adult can be outside and or younger. But that's it.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Najarian.
I just feel a little dumb here because I'm looking at this. I know we talked about it, but what specifically is wayfinding signs?
So that would say, a wayfinding would say City Hall to the right.
Okay.
So we live here, most of us understand where everything is, but if we want to attract other people, we might give them better direction. I always indicated that when people are coming off the college, they have no idea that Pat Booker Road and the other businesses are up this way. They may just be getting on 1604 because they haven't seen that. So it's just a sign to direct people how to get to certain areas of our city.
That's true, and it's exactly what it sounds like, so
Yes.
it was way too easy, so I thought it had to be wrong. Yeah, but, and that goes, that is a good idea there as far as a lot of people saying that they can't find our golf course because it's not right off of the main drag as they come in. They have to actually get on the
Depends
drag.
on which way they come. There is a sign on 1604 that says golf course. There is one on the access road that says golf course. It doesn't say Olympia Hills because it's on the TxDOT property and they don't advertise businesses. It does say municipal golf course.
Just municipal.
If they're coming off Pat Booker Road, there's not one, but most people come off of Universal City Boulevard or Olympia Parkway. When they get closer to the golf course, they do actually see signs that say golf course.
Okay. Any other priorities that you think that need to be should include in the budget? Again, that's just a little wrong for it. So they're working on it now. If we think there's something specifically we'd like to see in there, we need to give that direction to the staff. You've got some, Kim, obviously.
Yes, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Okay. Anyone else? Anybody else? This is just, again, just a discussion. Okay, let's move on now to tab number I, which is presentation of the city staff agenda / meeting schedule for 2023, June 2023 to January 2023. Sure.
Yes, so there was a comment that was made at the last council meeting, and I apologize. I know, like, last time our agenda was 315 pages, this time it was 309. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the PUD, and they are all generally the same from time to time to time to time. And I know you get used to that. So there was the question is, could we not get it out earlier? I just wanted to let you know that state law only requires us to get it out 72 hours in advance. We always try to get it out a little bit earlier, and we've been putting it out on a Friday. So I put up for a council discussion on whether or not you wanted to have it earlier. I gave you an indication of what that would look like in terms of when the staff would have everything to myself and Kristen and Maribel, so that we could get the actual agenda together, and then when that would happen and go out for the deadline for posting, and then the city council meeting. And so I just wanted to have a general discussion with you on whether you wanted to follow this, or you want to stay with the Friday, or you want to go to a Thursday. You know, I just need to get some direction from you what you'd like to see.
Okay, let's just open it up for discussion. Yes, ma'am.
I would prefer to see it on Wednesday if possible.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for getting it out last Wednesday and putting us on the agenda and being open to getting out early. I think early is better for everybody, us and the public, if somebody wants to read about something. And it gives me 2 more days to stress about it, so I appreciate that. If we can stick to this, I think it would be fantastic.
Right, but it gives us 2 less days to stress about it.
I understand.
Which is not good. So understanding where the trade-off is, right, from the staff perspective. So we know that we have Parks and Rec that meets on a Tuesday, Library that meets on a Wednesday, and EDC that works on a Thursday. So if we're putting the agenda out on a Tuesday, that means it could be 2 or 3 weeks before their items ever get picked up again. Normally, when they have their meetings and we put it out on Friday, we'll have sufficient amount of time to get their items on there. Just understand that there may be some items that don't get put on the agenda for consideration because we're following a different time schedule. And it does impact the boards and commissions and the stuff that they put out.
That's right, I completely understand that, and that I appreciate you being willing to take that sacrifice. I think if we had 1 meeting a month, it'd be more of a concern because that means something misses and it's got to wait a whole month. But having twice a month, I don't think the 2-week wait if they miss the deadline is as bad. So I would prefer to stick to the schedule that you put in the agenda packet if possible.
Mr. Goolsby.
Mr. Goolsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I get it and I understand it. My thing is when are you planning on implementing this? Because you're starting it, I mean, is this something you're going to implement immediately, or let's take another month or 2 to make sure that we get everything kind of, like you said, Ms. Turner, we've got the different meetings throughout the week. Do we need to go ahead and just delay the implementation of this for another month just so we can kind of work it all out?
Well, thank you for asking. We did test it this past month. Christine, again, is not here, so, her committee met and they approved their stuff, and we scrambled really, really hard to get everything for them on this agenda so that they could get that done. Again, I'm helping them, but the ones that are really putting everything together are Kristen and Maribel. I don't know if you want to add anything in on the Tuesday or the Tuesday versus the Friday. Sorry to put you on the spot back there, but I see you waving your hand too.
No, that's okay. Specifically first, if I could talk about the EDC. So we just had Brenner Groomer go through their storefront improvement project, And unfortunately, they missed out on being able to be reimbursed for some of their expansion work that they did because of the public hearing needed and the fact that EDCs can't fund projects that have already started. If we were to follow this timeline with EDC's meetings being on Thursday, they would have to wait almost 3 entire weeks to just get the council's reading the first time, and then 2 more weeks for the second reading, which is 5 weeks before they can start some of those projects. Those businesses already are paying for their lease spaces, and they're trying to go as quickly as they can to make revenue in those spots. So I could see that negatively affecting businesses and how they move forward with getting grant money from the EDC. City clerk wise, I've been doing this for, I guess, 8 years now, and very, very rarely, if ever, do we have everything that we are anticipating to put on this agenda by Tuesday afternoon. Not just because I'm waiting on it from the department heads, but also I'm waiting on it from our vendors, from our consultants, from the experts in our field. Sometimes we do, almost all of our bid openings are done at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So that would mean after that bid opening, we're waiting 2 to 3 weeks to actually award that bid, where currently we're able to do that within almost 7 days. So that's also stalling our construction projects as well. I feel like on the agendas that we are able to get them out early, we do and we can try to have that expectation. But sometimes by holding us to that standard that by law we don't have to be held to, we may be restricting and holding back the progress of city business. And I mean, ultimately it's y'all's decision to make, but it does affect us in that way. And then also we have hired Maribel to take on the role of doing the minutes for every single board and commission. So that way they're uniform and standard in how they're presented to residents and to council. And having that standard for her means that she would be doing minutes for PNC and BOA Monday night and all day Tuesday, and expected to get the agenda out on Wednesday, which eats into her ability to do her council minutes. Not saying that it's not possible, but there's a reaction to every action and cause and effect, and I just want to make sure that those are put out there for you guys to know about.
Yes, Kristen.
I appreciate the insight that Kristen just gave, because that was one of the things that I probably was most concerned about, was the impact to city business and getting things on the agenda and that rollout effect to businesses or, you know, actually being able to do business. I love having it earlier, but I'm not sure that I want to set that as a firm deadline to be out Wednesday, just because I recognize that there might be situations where it's going to be beneficial to have it wait, maybe the EDC weeks that previously, I'm going to stop and ask a question there. Previously on Friday, was it out by Friday at 5, or did people get it by noon?
Well, we always try to get it out as early as possible. If we could get it out on Thursday, that would be beneficial as well. We always want to get it out to you as soon as possible. We recognize that most of you have other things to do than look at a 310-page council agenda. We always try to get it out by 5. Unfortunately, as Kristen mentioned, we do have vendors and in particular engineers and architects and developers that we're waiting on. And the reason we're waiting on them is because they're waiting on an engineer, they're waiting on an architect, or they're waiting on a cost estimate. And so it does have a bit of a domino effect for us as well as for you. And so we try to, as much, keep them to a particular schedule. So we can shoot for Thursday, or we can shoot for noon on Friday. And Maribel's raising her hand back there.
Councilmember Goolsby just had something to say.
All right, thank you.
Bear, did you have something to add?
Oh, yeah, she was blaming architects. I don't know how to do that.
Turn it off. Okay, all right. Anything else, Mr. Buck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. About a year ago, after I was elected to City Council, I asked you all of those same questions during one of our in-briefs, and all those answers that you and Ms. Mueller just gave were presented to me, where you said, or I asked you, what would be the impact of putting out the agenda earlier? And all those reasons were presented to me, and I went, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Putting it out 3 or 4 days earlier than we already are sometimes will impact our ability to move forward rapidly with the business of the city because we tie our hands, because once we publish the agenda, it's difficult, if not impossible, to modify that short notice. And I accepted about a year ago the answers that I was given, understanding that it was going to have a significant impact on me, and that yes, I would be spending a significant portion of my Saturday or Sunday or Monday having to read through the agenda. I've also not been happy that the agenda has been 309 pages long, but I managed to get through it and be prepared for my Sunday meetings with the residents of Universal City. So while I would appreciate the agenda being put out early, I recognize the utility in not putting it out early. And I, for one, sir, accept that the agenda should be, that the deadline for the agenda should remain on Friday with a goal of having it out as early as possible.
Okay.
I just want to put on the record that when we, yes, it's great for city business and stuff, but as someone who's going to represent the residents, and I feel like that's wholeheartedly my job, it's really, really hard for the residents to get it Friday, sometimes not until 5 o'clock. And then to be able to have the meetings that they need to have with city staff on Monday or Tuesday, which can be incredibly hard to do. So when we have it out on Wednesday, it gives them all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Monday, and part of Tuesday before the city council meeting. So having it out on Friday really is just at a detriment to your residents, is all I'm going to land on it.
Mr. Goolsby has a good hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a guy that does business with multiple cities, I understand the issue that Ms. Turner is throwing out there. As a guy who was voted by the constituents to represent them and do his research, I also have no issue with spending some time Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to do my research. I understand it can be time consuming. But I like what Mr. Buck said. Let's try to get it out as early as we can. But let's not hamstring people trying to do business in the city with making it a point of, or making it a fact of it has to be out Wednesday. If it can be out Wednesday, if there's not something that's going to hamstring somebody through the EDC like what happened with Green Rumors, let's not hurt people trying to do business in UC. Let's try to help them. Let's not put something on the on the books that says it has to be this date. But I like what you say about let's try to get it out as early as possible. So let's do that, but let's not set a date that makes it a requirement that hamstrings people. So I like the idea, but I also don't want to hamstring people.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Bert.
I think it's important to draw a distinction between the agenda and the agenda packet. And so I would imagine on every Wednesday, we pretty much, but you pretty much know what you'd like to be on that council agenda, or you have a good idea what's going to be on it. And so getting the agenda out with as much of the packet as you can is an option on Wednesday, and then a supplemental on Friday to say EDC didn't approve this or did, so we're going to scrap this agenda item. That's also the mayor's prerogative to say, we had this one on there, we thought it was going to happen, but we're scrapping it because it didn't happen and we're no longer going to have that. It at least gives us an indication of what's going to be on that agenda, even if we don't have all the details. It's something to consider.
From a professional perspective, I would never give you an agenda that only has half the documentation in it, and I'm going to assume the rest of the staff wouldn't do that either. I think that's unprofessional. Also, I think what you're proposing might actually then make us spend 2 whole days on getting the agenda out, right? We spent all the time getting to the first one, and then we're going to scramble and spend all the time getting the addendum out. I see that as double work, but I would never want to give my council members a half-done agenda packet.
Okay.
That's just me.
Mr. Jerry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I see both sides, but I also worry about trying to get things out early and hamstringing the process of that, which would end up, rushing and giving us incomplete or not as factual or enough information for the agenda that we have, where things could be missed and being in a hurry. And I'd rather have the time taken to get it right and have the information that we need, the details that we need before that. So again, from that, that business-wise, if we can get it out early, great, but I'm also, to hamstring, as the word was put out, as the phrase was put out, I don't agree with that. And it just, we do a lot of work on the weekends, but that's what we're elected to do. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I would also point out that normally our agenda packets weren't so large in the past, but we are going through a tremendous growth stage or a tremendous amount of period where people are looking at the city for change and for development, and that will not be forever. The PUDs are really the largest items that we have, and they are comprehensive, and we because you are voting on those and making recommendations on those, we for sure don't want to give those to you in a condensed form, because every aspect of those is going to be what the developer has to follow. So I recognize that even on tonight, I went through the initial PUD that we had. I think it was like 170 pages, but I think the other items we can get through quickly. Maybe it would be advantageous to you, and Michael's going to kill me, if we take the bigger items and put them toward the end so that you don't feel so exhausted, or unless you want them at the beginning. I don't know. I'm just trying to find a happy medium.
That'd be very tough to do because it depends on the agenda and the importance.
Well, and developers like to be first because, right, they're paying consultants to be here. They've got engineers and architects who get paid a lot of money.
Okay, this is a presentation. This is not this is a voting item right now. But she just wanted to get some idea of where we felt would be important things. So we have a mixed bag here. My personal position is at least 72 hours in advance, and if possible earlier than that. The law requires us to do it at least 72 hours in advance. And all the years that I've served on this council, it is trying on the weekends. When you got a full agenda, there's no question about it. But that's why we were elected to represent our people, and so if we have to go home, we can do homework. If possible, would love to be able to see it earlier, if at all possible. So I mean, that's my position. 72 hours is for sure, but earlier if it warrants itself. But I would not want us to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give it to everybody on Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think that's too restrictive.
We wouldn't do the 72 hours because that means we're giving it to you on a Saturday afternoon.
I'm sorry.
We would never, or a Sunday afternoon, we would never do that to you.
My train of thought was, we used to have it 72 now, it's even another day earlier than that.
We do it, yeah, so you have at least, hopefully 4 to 5 days to look at it. Kristen has one more comment. Thank you.
I'm sorry, yes, and maybe to give some comfort to people who are wanting it out earlier. So for the last 8 years, I've been doing the agenda packet and a lot of other duties alone. So yes, they were getting out at 5:01 on a Friday, but we do have Maribel here now who is taking on a lot of those roles and responsibilities and does have the agenda packet prepared almost as the items come in. And so without making this a standard, I still feel like there's going to be several, more often than not, we will be able to get it out on a Wednesday or a Thursday because there is that assistance there and still giving us the flexibility to be able to wait on consultants or whatever when we need to. So.
And we will also try to make it incumbent upon the staff members that are going to have to be putting items on for the agenda that maybe they communicate with her a little bit sooner on the items that they're going to be bringing so that we can get back with the developers and the businesses to tell them deadline or not, and let the choice whether they get it in or not to be their choice, and if they don't get on the agenda, then they have to wait.
Earlier is preferred, but we understand the situation. And I think with Maribel on staff now that we're going to be able to expedite as many as possible the getting out the agenda at an earlier time. Definitely. I think we've seen that since she's come on board, that she's putting a lot of effort in that direction. Okay, anyone else? All right.
Thank you.
Now, if there's someone that would like to continue on this, they just need to get with me or the city manager, and we'll move on from here. But I think I hear that we would like to see it earlier, if at all possible, but I would not like to see it legislated in terms of us setting it. So this is when it's going to happen. I think we all realize that we would like to have it as early as possible, if that can be done. Okay, that closes our business for this evening, so turn it over to Ms. Turner for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I usually talk about events that are going to be happening. I hope you all got the event calendar for the city, which also then followed up with the event calendar at the library, because in our summer months we do have a plethora of activities taking place, so we'll make sure that we continue to send that out to you. So what I wanted to talk about tonight are some of the upcoming items that we have on future agendas so that you can be aware of them. June 20th, which is our next meeting, we will have a public safety presentation. That'll be police, fire, and EMS. Also on that particular one, we will have a renewal for our EMS contract with the city of Schertz and the Schertz EMS. We will have a consultant here who will be doing a presentation on the Kitty Hawk Walmart thoroughfare plan so that you understand where we are in the design of that and the cost estimates. And then we also will have the consultant here that did the retail study, and he's going to talk about his findings in that for the city of Universal City. That's all on June 20th, besides some of the regular items that we have coming forward. On July 5th or July 18th, I haven't quite narrowed down that date, we will have our auditors present to go through the draft audit with you and to get that approved. On 18 July, I'm sorry, I also forgot on the June 20th, are we going to be talking about some of the stuff in the back end of the aviation district plan? Some of the findings of the consultant, yes.
Yes.
I apologize, moving back to June 20th, we've already seen the picture of the aviation plan. There's a lot of data that went in behind that. We just thought maybe for educational purposes, we should probably talk about some of the findings of what those consultants came up, what they found in doing their study and their surveys and their meetings with residences and businesses, so that you understand how they came up with the plan that they came up with. And so we'll be doing that on the 20th. Sorry, jumping back to the 18th, the consultant who is working on the street plan for the reconstruction will be present. He will be presenting his findings and recommendations for the first round of funding for street repair. Our financial advisor, Victor Quiroga, will be here to talk to you about the possibility of issuing these first round of $6 million for street bonds. We will also, I'm going to try to have some draft code of conduct and operating procedures for council for you to look at. And then the last thing that I wanted to just mention to you is, in the past, we've had the discussion regarding the venue tax, lengthy discussions, which have been very beneficial. There were some initial tasks provided to the staff, and I just kind of want to let you know where we are in working on those. So one of the things that we were asked to figure out is what if there was an administrative transfer from the venue project to the general fund, what would that be based on the number of people working on the golf course from your non-golf course staff and positions and hours. So we have ran that. It runs between $150,000 to $200,000 a year, give or take, because it changes based on projects. We are looking into the interfund loan. So our prior audit had a number in it. Mr. Vaughan did some changes and had given some different numbers. We had a third party go in and look at it and came up with a different number. So, you know, it's numbers. And so we are combing through that with a fine-tooth comb so that when we come back with you, we have a number that we believe between the auditors and the third party that's looking at it and our city finance director, that the three of them agree that's the number. And then the other thing that you had asked us to do is look at the park's operational budget, what it would be, because remember one of the discussions that we had is that you could operationally fund your parks department out of that. That comes to rounding numbers about $1 million a year. That does not include any park improvements or capital improvements. That's your operational costs. There was some discussion on what we were going to do with the golf course and moving forward, etc. So I did engage a retail architect. He came up with a conceptual plan, which he has given to us. So that was after him meeting with Katie and Sal and walking around and going through all the plans that we have. This Friday, I am meeting with a general contractor who's going to provide us with some probable estimated costs of construction and renovation, so you have some numbers to look at. And then I know the attorneys have met several times on ballot languages, and there are multiple courses of action that could be taken. And for them to actually come up with a preferred ballot language, they believe that they need to have better guidance and direction from City Council, because there were a lot of ideas that were thrown out. So that's where we are in that process thus far.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, Paul, start with you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other than congratulating our Eagle Scout who's gone, which I was in Scouts, never made it that high, I always wanted to, but that's just fantastic. But that's all I have tonight. Mr. Mayor, I'm not talking too long.
Bear, let me tune you in right now and get you going.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As former PAC leader for PAC 172, I just think that is awesome to see what Mr. Robbins did. That's just fantastic. Sorry, just way excited about that. I had something and I deleted it in a page, so I apologize, Mr. Mayor, but that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, Bear, thanks. Okay, Phil?
Here, just, Mr. Mayor, I think that rundown was great, and I got probably half of it. I was trying to keep up, and it was hard. But I think that might be a compromise if there's a way that we could be a little bit more in loop on like what's coming down the pipeline. Maybe they get an agenda out early. I know one of the cities that shall remain nameless, the city manager sends out an email on Friday to the council just kind of letting him know what's going on that week and what's he's working on. I think that would be great if something we could do. That might alleviate that anxiety about what's going on and what's that Friday agenda going to look like, so it's not so surprised.
Yeah, and I apologize. I used to do that, but it became that there were so many open records requests from that it was disadvantageous to the staff that I kind of stopped doing that. But if council is open to me sending them a heads up, hey, here's what's going on, I am more than welcome to do that.
I would love that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think you've got a lot of nods here that they would appreciate that. Okay, thanks, Phil. Christina?
I had the opportunity today to attend the beginning of a Heroes Camp that's geared towards 12 to 14-year-olds. I will say, I just wanted to call out the city staff, the chiefs, and all of the officers and the firemen that participated in that process in getting the agenda and opening up the firehouse to 23 kids. And just kind of the organized chaos that took place today. It was really exciting, and I really recognize that the staff worked so hard to get that going. So that's all.
I drove by numerous times and I saw them out there at the fire department. Really having a lot of fun.
And I invite any of the council, if you guys have the opportunity this week or on Saturday to stop out. I think you'd like to see it firsthand.
What are the hours?
It's 9 to 4 through Friday, and then Saturday is like 9 to maybe 1.
Very good. Yes.
I'm ready for mine.
Okay. Ms. Brooke?
In the interest of getting home, Mr. Mayor, I also have nothing for the evening. Thank you, sir.
I have a couple of quick items for you. Number one is the Northeast Partnership is this Thursday, and those of you that could attend, I think you'd enjoy it. There's going to be a presentation by the Honor Flight, which is a group that sends veterans to Washington, D.C., and it's really phenomenal. I'll also give you a chance, especially to our new members, if they can make it, it gives you a chance to meet council people and city staff from the other cities as well. So it's a really good function. It's at 11:30. If you think you can make it, please let Kristen know, and she can make sure that everybody gets on the agenda, gets on the menu, and is able to attend. Okay, and the other thing, and I don't know if you guys have received it, but I received a very interesting email from the Social Security Administration. I don't know if it came on your emails, but it says I need a little, just click here because I want to make sure your records are updated. Things like that. It's definitely phishing, not F-I-S-H-P-H-I-S, right? The phishing. So I recommend that you take that cyber security training that's available. Once a month, you might get a little note in your council member email that says, Dutch training, that's not phishing. That's actually trying to make sure that we stay aboard. And cybersecurity is very, very real. So you can pretty much tell. Someone's not going to ask those kinds of information if they're legitimate. So anyway, just a
I also
food for
like to
thought.
comment that the Social Security Administration does not send emails, nor do they make phone calls. They only do their business by written letter. So there's no reason to get caught up in that.
A lot of ways you can tell it is in the name of the company, or whoever it is, and you can double check if it's a legitimate email address. So, but anyway, just a caution, be careful, and take that cybersecurity training whenever you have the opportunity. Okay, thank you everyone for this evening, and it is now 9:35. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for sticking around. Thank you.